They all say I won't live past 3 days. The wind was strong at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau. I pulled my faded coat tighter, clutching the divorce certificate I had just received through the window. The red booklet with its gold-stamped lettering marked a light and effortless end to 3 years of marriage. Gu Sahan stood 3 steps away, dressed in a meticulously tailored black suit. The sapphire cufflinks on his sleeves were a birthday gift I had given him last year. He looked down at his phone, not even bothering to spare me a glance. Now that you've signed, just leave. Gu Sahan finally looked up, his tone as indifferent as if he were dismissing an irrelevant subordinate. Don't stand here, it doesn't look good for people to see. I suddenly feel like laughing. For 3 years, I've been a ghost in the Gu family. Since when have I ever been afraid of being seen? Sahan, a sweet, coquettish female voice came from behind me. I didn't turn around, just hearing that voice, I knew exactly who it was. Lin Yue, the name that had been appearing all too frequently in my marriage over the past 6 months. The clicking sound of high heels echoed on the floor tiles. Lin Yue, dressed in a pink Chanel suit and carrying a Hermes Birkin bag, looked as impeccably made up as if she had stepped off a magazine cover. She walked straight to Gu Sahan's side and naturally linked her arm through his. Oh, you're here too, sister. Lin Yue tilted her head to look at me, a sweet smile playing on her lips. Sorry to make you come all this way, but don't worry, I'll take good care of Sahan from now on. Gu Sahan didn't shake off her hand. My husband of 3 years allowed another woman to hold his arm right in front of me, his freshly divorced ex-wife, and on his face was nothing short of a doting expression. Chinha, about your health. Gu Sahan suddenly spoke, his tone carrying a faint, almost imperceptible hesitation. I had my assistant transfer 5 million to your account. Get your illness treated. Lin Yue immediately picked up the conversation, her voice full of concern. That's right, sister. I heard you've been diagnosed with terminal pancreatic cancer. The doctor said you have at most 3 days left, right? What a shame. You're still so young, sister. As she said this, her eyes were smiling. That kind of smile couldn't be hidden. It welled up from the depths of her eyes, smug and triumphant, as if she had just won the lottery jackpot. In the late stages of pancreatic cancer, he won't survive more than 3 days. That has been the greatest concern for my husband and his mistress over the past month. I looked at Lin Yue's delicately made-up face and suddenly felt I had seen enough of this farce. Ms. Lin, I said calmly, that Cartier hairpin in your hair was a gift from my mother-in-law when we got married. She said it's something passed down to the daughter-in-law of the Gu family. Lin Yue's smile froze for a moment, then she touched the hair clip on her head, looking even more pleased with herself. Yes, Auntie said it's mine now. You don't mind, do you, sister? It's not like you'll have any use for it in the future. I don't mind. I put the divorce certificate into my bag and smoothed out the wrinkles on my coat. Dead people really have no use for such things. My tone was so calm that Gu Sahan couldn't help but furrow his brow. Chinha, you, Gu Sahan. I interrupted him, my voice calm and steady. For 3 years, you've never had the patience to hear me finish a single sentence. Now that we're finally divorced, let me say what I have to say. Lin Yue tightened her grip on Gu Sahan's arm, as if afraid I might take something from her. Sister, I know you're hurting, but Sahan stopped loving you long ago. Why must you, Miss Lin? I turned to look at her, the corners of my mouth lifting slightly. You went out of your way today to wait for me at the Civil Affairs Bureau, just to watch me cry, make a scene, or beg Gu Sahan not to abandon me, didn't you? I'm sorry to disappoint you. I paused, my gaze sweeping from her triumphant face down to her slightly raised belly. How many months along is the child? Lin Yue instinctively covered her stomach, a flash of panic crossing her face. Gu Sahan's expression changed as well. Chinha, I originally planned to tell you about this later. No need to say it. I waved my hand. Gu Sahan, who you want to have your child has nothing to do with me anymore, but there's something I want to remind you of. I looked at him, at this man I had secretly loved for 3 years. Don't let the Gu family's genes get contaminated by something unclean. What do you mean? Lin Yue's expression instantly shifted, her sweet facade shattering. Who do you think you are? Chinha, a dying person, and you still have the nerve to be so stubborn. Do you believe I can make you, Yue? Gu Sahan pressed her hand, then looked at me with a slightly more complicated gaze. Chinha, don't be like this. Yue is carrying my child. Please don't be so harsh. Harsh? I smiled. Then let me say something nice. I wish you both 100 years of happiness and a house full of children. Having said that, I turned and walked away. Chinha, Lin Yue called out from behind me, her voice dripping with poorly concealed schadenfreude. I'll send you a funeral wreath in 3 days. Don't worry. I'll buy the most expensive one. I did not look back. The steps leading up to the Civil Affairs Bureau were long. I walked down step by step, steady and sure. The wind lifted the hem of my faded white coat, revealing the seemingly ordinary base layer underneath. Lin Yue probably wouldn't recognize the brand, but if Gu Sihan were still clear-headed, he might. It was a private custom label favored by old-money Italian families, the price of which could buy Lin Yue's entire outfit. Not that it would matter if he didn't recognize it. For 3 years, he had never once looked me in the eye, so of course he never noticed what I was wearing. Under the steps, a black Rolls-Royce Phantom had parked there at some unknown moment. It wasn't an ordinary Phantom, but a stretched custom edition, one of only 3 in the world. The body featured a special custom paint finish that shimmered with a deep purple glow in the sunlight. The license plate was a special white-on-black design, and anyone in the know could tell at a glance that this car belonged to the inner circle of Jingdu. I walked to the car door, where a young man in a black uniform was already waiting, respectfully holding the door open for me. "Miss." I turned my head and took one last look at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau. Gu Sihan was still standing there, Lin Yue holding his arm, looking up and saying something to him. She was smiling with smug satisfaction, like a victorious general. And then Gu Sihan's gaze finally fell on me, or rather, it fell on the car in front of me. His expression changed. Even the head of the Gu Corporation might not have had the chance to ride in a car of this caliber. What's more, the license plate on this vehicle was known to everyone in Jiangqing. It belonged to the Shin family of Kyoto. "Get in, miss," the assistant said quietly. "It's windy out here." I bent down and got into the car. As the door closed, I heard Lin Yue's voice from afar. "Sihan, what kind of car is that? It looks..." The words behind were shut out by the car door. The Rolls-Royce seats were custom made from ivory white leather, and the interior was filled with a faint scent of agarwood. I tossed the divorce certificate casually onto the seat, took off the faded jacket, and revealed the sharp, well-tailored black turtleneck underneath. The assistant in the passenger seat handed me a warm towel and a freshly brewed cup of Jun-made tea. "Miss, you've worked hard." I took the teacup, took a sip, and savored the sweetness of the tea as it spread across my tongue. "It's no trouble. The play is over. Time to reel in the net." The assistant took a tablet from the briefcase and handed it to me with both hands. "Miss, a message from 10 minutes ago. The Gu Group's capital chain has broken. 3 banks called in their loans at the same time, and the stock price hit the limit down as soon as the market opened. The news has already been pushed across all platforms." On the screen, the headline of the financial news read conspicuously, "Breaking, the Gu Group faces its biggest crisis since its founding, potentially heading for bankruptcy and liquidation." I glanced at it, the corners of my mouth curling slightly. "Driver, keep the car steady. The phone should be ringing soon." As soon as I finished speaking, the phone in my clutch began to vibrate. A name flashed on the screen. "Sihan Gu." I didn't answer. The phone buzzed over and over, the screen lighting up and darkening, and lighting up again. Sihan Gu's name kept flashing on the screen, like a dying fish struggling for the last time. I turned my phone over and placed it face down on the seat. "Miss, should I turn it off?" the assistant asked. "No need." I leaned back in the seat and closed my eyes. "Let him call. By the way, is Lin Yue's file ready?" "It's ready, miss." Lin Yue, originally named Lin Xiaoyu, her mother, Lin Meifeng, worked as a maid at the Shin family's old residence 25 years ago. She was later dismissed for theft. As for what exactly was stolen, the old residence is still checking the records from back then. Let her investigate. Take your time, no rush. News of the Gu Corporation's collapse needs time to spread. Lin Yue's background also needs to be unraveled layer by layer. I have all the time in the world. Outside the car window, the streetscape of Jiangqing flashed by in rapid retreat. The phone was still vibrating. "Gu Sihan, you just made the call you never once took the initiative to make in 3 years. Now you're feeling anxious. Too late." The Rolls-Royce glided smoothly down Jiangqing's Central Avenue before turning into a quiet, tree-lined boulevard. At the end of this road stood the Jiangqing branch building of the Kyoto Shin family, a 58-story glass-curtained tower that cast a cold gleam under the afternoon sun. "By the way, miss," the assistant turned back and said, "the hospital just sent word. Dr. Lu Wentao, the chief physician who gave you the examination, was picked up by Lin Yue's people an hour ago. Should we stop them?" "No need." I opened my eyes and looked at the building growing closer outside the window. Let him go. By the way, compile the evidence of Lu Wentao's bribery over the years, along with the recording of him falsifying Lin Yue's medical report, and send them to the Health Commission and the Public Security Department. Understood. The car pulled up at the entrance of the building. The security guard at the door quickly stepped forward and opened the car door, his movements as precise as if welcoming a queen. I picked up my clutch and walked into the building. The sound of my high heels clicking against the marble floor rang out sharply. Employees moving through the lobby paused one after another, bowing their heads respectfully. Good morning, President Shin. President Shin. I nodded slightly and stepped into the private elevator. The moment the elevator doors closed, the phone screen lit up again. Still Gu Sihan, 32 missed calls. The signal in the elevator was poor, but I still saw dozens of messages pop up on WeChat, all sent by Gu Sihan. Qinghe, where are you? What's going on with that car? What's your relationship with the Shin family? Was what happened to the Gu Corporation you're doing? Answer the phone. Please, answer the phone. Qinghe, I was wrong. Can we talk? The last message had only 4 words. Will you come back? I stared at those 4 words, my fingers hovering above the screen, but in the end I did not reply. The elevator reached the top floor. The moment the doors opened, a panoramic view of Jiangqing unfolded beyond the floor to ceiling windows. This bustling commercial district, once the stronghold of the Gu Group, now bore the Shin family's name. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling window and gazed toward the distant Gu Group tower, 33 stories, once a landmark of Jiangqing, and now, everyone in that building was probably frantically making phone calls, desperately seeking help. My phone vibrated again. This time, it wasn't a call, it was a text message, sent by Gu Sihan. Qinghe, Yue said you rented that car just to provoke me. Tell me the truth. What exactly is your relationship with the Shin family? Does the plunge in Gu Corporation's stock price have anything to do with you? Just tell me. I won't blame you. I couldn't help but laugh. After everything, he still believes Lin Yue's words. After everything, he still puts on that condescending air. It's not your fault, Gu Sihan. Do you still think you're qualified to blame me? I handed my phone to the assistant. Replied to his message. The assistant took out their phone and waited for me to speak. I looked out the window at the gilded logo atop the distant Gu Corporation building. Just tell them. Chapter 2, The Truth in the Rolls-Royce. Within 30 seconds of sending the text message, Gu Sihan's phone call came through again. I'll take it this time, Qinghe. His voice exploded through the receiver, carrying a kind of panic I had never heard from him before. What the hell did you send? What do you mean, Mr. Gu? Your company and your people both need a proper checkup. What are you even talking about? Exactly what it says. I leaned back against the leather seat, my tone indifferent. Gu Sihan, have you forgotten how to understand Chinese? So the crash in Gu's stock price was your doing. His breathing was heavy, as if he had just run an 800-meter sprint. How could you possibly? What's your connection to the Shin family? That Rolls-Royce belongs to the Shins. How are you sitting inside it? Guess. Qinghe, he was almost shouting now. Don't play games with me. Tell me the truth. The truth. I let out a laugh. Gu Sihan, in 3 years of marriage, how many chances have you given me to tell the truth? Every time I wanted to talk to you, you brushed me off with I'm busy. Now you want the truth. Too bad. I don't feel like telling it. There was silence on the other end of the line for 2 seconds. You're getting back at me. His voice dropped, carrying a stunned realization. It's about Yue, isn't it? You're retaliating against me because of her, Lin Yue. I repeated the name, finding it somewhat amusing. Gu Sihan, you think too highly of her. Does she even deserve me taking action against her? Then explain it clearly. Is what happened to the Gu Corporation really you? It was me. I admitted outright. The capital chain of Gu Corporation broke. 3 banks called in their loans at the same time, and the stock price hit the limit down. I did all of it. Any other questions? There was a deathly silence. On the other end of the line, I could even hear the sound of his teeth clenching. Qinghe, he said, each word deliberate and slow. Who exactly are you? Your ex-wife, the one who just signed the papers at the Civil Affairs Bureau. What, have you forgotten so soon? Don't play word games with me. Gu Sihan's voice carried a faint, barely perceptible tremor. Who exactly are you? You've been married to me for 3 years, and you never once said you had anything to do with the Shin family. You never said you had this kind of ability. You never asked. I interrupted him. Gu Sihan, you never asked what my family does for a living, never asked who my parents are, never asked where I come from. You didn't even ask whether I liked the necklace you gave Lin Yue. the one you remodeled from my dowry. He was stunned. You, how do you know? I know a lot of things. For example, the child in Lin Yue's belly may not be yours. Shin Qinghe, don't rush to shout, I said. Leisurely, Gu Sihan, what you should be most worried about right now isn't whose child is in Lin Yue's belly, but how many more days the Gu Group can hold on. As far as I know, when the market opens at 9 tomorrow morning, a second wave of news will be released. How many limit-down days do you think Gu Group's stock price can withstand? Gu Sihan's breathing grew more and more rapid. Qinghe, his tone suddenly softened, carrying a pleading I had never heard before. Can we meet, right now? Where are you? I'll come find you, meet you. I looked down at the watch on my wrist. 3:20 in the afternoon. Mr. Gu, shouldn't you be at the hospital with Lin Yue for her prenatal checkup? Isn't she carrying your child? Her belly already starting to show. Isn't it inappropriate for you to abandon her and come see your ex-wife? Don't mention her. Gu Sihan suddenly shouted. Qinghe, I didn't know you were a member of the Shin family. I admit, these past 3 years I haven't treated you well enough, but the Gu Corporation is my father's life's work. You can't. I can. Gu Sihan, of course I can. Have you forgotten how your father made his fortune back in the day? The breathing on the other end of the phone stopped. You, what do you know? I know far more than you imagine. I turned to look out the car window. The Rolls-Royce had already left downtown Jiangqing and was heading toward the Shin Group Tower in the east of the city. 25 years ago, there was a factory in Jiangqing called Qinghe Textile. The boss's surname was Shin Huayuan. Back then, the Gu Group was just a small workshop. It only managed to rise and grow after receiving a shady order from your father, the origin of which was unknown. Gu Sihan, do you know how that order came about? He didn't say a word. Do you know why Qinghe Textile went bankrupt overnight? My voice was as flat as still water. Do you know where Shin Huayuan went afterward? Qinghe, Gu Sihan's voice trembled. Shin Huayuan, what is your relationship with him? Shin Huayuan was my father, and the Qinghe in Qinghe Textile is my name. The other end of the line fell completely silent. It was so quiet that I thought the signal had cut out. Impossible. Gu Sihan's voice finally came through, hoarse as if scraped with sandpaper. Impossible. My father said the owner of Qinghe Textiles, Mr. Shin, had no children. He said their entire family, all dead. I finished the sentence for him. Is that what your father told you, that all the Shins were wiped out, so the Gu family could enjoy that blood-stained fortune with a clear conscience? It's not like that, Qinghe. I didn't know any of this. I really didn't know. I know that you don't know, I said calmly. Of course your father wouldn't tell you the truth. How could he ever tell his own son how he colluded with outsiders back then, cooking the books and setting traps to drive Shin Huayuan to jump off a building? A dull thud came from the other end of the line, as if Gu Sihan had slammed into something. Jump off a building. His voice was trembling. Your father, he's dead. He jumped from the roof of Qinghe Textile and died on the spot. My mother had a heart attack when she heard the news, and they couldn't save her. That year, I was 3 years old, and the head of the Shin family in Kyoto took me back. Gu Sihan, do you understand now? These 3 years I've spent in the Gu family haven't been about being a devoted wife to you. I came to collect a debt. Qinghe, don't call my name. I suddenly felt a bit tired. Sihan Gu, you don't know anything, so I don't blame you, but you are the son of the Gu family, and blood debts must be repaid by you alone. The bankruptcy of Gu Corporation is just the first step. There will be a second and a third step. Be prepared. Wait. His voice suddenly became urgent. Qinghe, no matter what my father did, I can make it up to you. I'll transfer 30% of Gu Corporation shares to you. I'll give you all the properties under my name. I'll give me everything under your name. I laughed. Sihan Gu, do you still not understand the situation? Gu Corporation hit the daily trading limit today, and your shares are now worthless. Your properties. Once Gu Corporation goes into bankruptcy liquidation, the bank will be the first to seize your assets. Right now, all you can give me is a mountain of debt. There was another dead silence on the other end of the line. Oh, by the way, I said, as if suddenly remembering something, there's something I forgot to tell you. Of the 3 banks that simultaneously called in their loans from the Gu Corporation, 2 are owned by the Shin family in the capital. As for the third, the board just welcomed a new shareholder last month, whose surname is also Shin. You, how could the Shin family? I know the Shin family keeps a low profile, I said. So low that people like you have long forgotten theirs. Still a Shin family in the capital. That's fine, you'll remember it. Little by little, the Rolls-Royce drove into the underground parking lot of Shin's tower. The security guards at the entrance spotted the license plate from afar and snapped to attention in unison to salute. Gu-Sahan, I have something to do. Hang up. Wait, Chingha, one last question. Go ahead, you married me, from start to finish, just to take revenge. I held the phone and was silent for 3 seconds. No, then why did you? Not at the beginning. At first, when I married you, I truly wanted to build a life with you, but you personally snuffed out that sincerity with your own hands. Sihan Gu, do you remember the day of our first anniversary? He fell silent. Of course you don't, I answered for him, because on that day, you were celebrating Lin Yue's birthday. I waited for you at the restaurant for 4 hours. The waiter came to replace the candles 3 times. In the end, I ate both steaks by myself and came home to throw up all night. Starting from that day, I began short-selling Gu Corporation stock. Chingha, alright, enough said. I took a deep breath. Gu-Sahan, there's nothing left to say between us. You go ahead and stay with Lin Yue. Oh, and let me remind you, her mother used to be a maid in my family. She ran off after stealing my mother's jewelry and business secrets. Do you really think she's with you for love? Gu-Sahan's voice sounded as if someone had gripped his throat. What did you say? Check it out yourself. Goodbye. I pressed the end call button, turned off my phone, and threw it into my bag. The assistant turned around from the co-pilot seat and handed over a folder. Miss, here is the complete information about Lin Yue's mother, Lin Meifeng. 25 years ago, under the alias Fong Qing, she worked as a maid in the old Shin residence. She stole a set of priceless jade jewelry and an unpublished business proposal from Madame. That proposal was later obtained by Gu-Sahan's father, Gu Jingting. Just 3 days before Qinghe Textile went under, I opened the folder and looked at the yellowed old photos inside. In the photo was a woman in her 30s, wearing a simple floral blouse, standing in the courtyard of the old Shin residence. In her arms was a baby, me, at 3 years old. Where is Lin Meifeng now? She opened 3 beauty salons in Jiangqing. The money she used was probably from selling the jewelry she stole back then. The assistant flipped through a page of the document. The reason Lin Yue has been able to get close to Gu-Sahan in recent years is because Lin Meifeng was pulling the strings behind the scenes. She knew the Gu family was wealthy and has always wanted her daughter to marry into it. Mother and daughter have really cooked up a clever scheme. I closed the folder, have the legal department prepare the materials, release them at 9 tomorrow morning, along with the Gu family's dirty laundry from back in the day. Understood. The assistant hesitated for a moment. Miss, there's one more thing. The old residence's investigation found that the middleman for that suspicious order placed with Qinghe Textile is still alive. We've located him, in a small county town down south. Don't touch him yet. Save it for later. One step at a time. First, crush the Gu family completely, then ruin Lin Yue and her mother. Finally, I looked at the parking lot outside the window. My face was reflected in the glass. It was a face so calm it bordered on cold. Finally, make Gu Jingting kneel before my father's grave and confess his guilt. The car door was pulled open by the assistant, and I stepped out of the car. High heels clicked on the concrete floor of the underground parking garage, their crisp echoes bouncing through the empty space. The doors of the private elevator were already open, casting a soft, warm golden light inside. I stepped into the elevator and turned around. Just as the elevator doors closed, I saw a silver-gray Bentley screech to a halt in the distance of the parking lot. The car door opened, and Gu-Sahan rushed out from inside. His suit jacket was nowhere to be seen. His tie hung askew around his neck, and his hair was a messy tangle. He staggered in my direction, shouting something, but the elevator doors had already closed. He was calling my name. The elevator ascended, the floor numbers flashing by. I leaned against the elevator wall and closed my eyes. 3 years, 3 years of forbearance, 3 years of laying the groundwork, 3 years of waiting. Gu-Sahan, you thought you were marrying a helpless orphan girl that you could control and bully at will. You were wrong. The one you married is the sole heir of the Shin family in Kyoto. She is the collector of your Gu family's blood debt. The elevator reached the top floor, and with a ding, the doors opened. Outside lies an entire floor dedicated to the CEO's office, with floor-to-ceiling windows framing the entire skyline of Jiangqing. Several executives in professional suits were already waiting by the elevator entrance. Mr. Shin, good day, Mr. Shin, President Shin, the board is ready. I stepped out of the elevator, took the documents from my secretary, and walked into the conference room without looking back. Behind me, the sunset over Jiangqing was slowly sinking below the horizon. painting the entire city in shades of gold. The former Goo Corporation tower looked especially dim in the fading light. Chapter 3, The Ex-Husband's Relentless Calls. The meeting didn't end until 8 in the evening. As I walked out of the conference room, my assistant Xiaozhou hurriedly caught up with me, her expression somewhat odd. President Shin, there's a Mr. Goo downstairs claiming to be your ex-husband. He's been waiting in the lobby for 3 hours, but security stopped him from coming up. Let him wait. I handed the signed document to her. Is the press conference for tomorrow at 9 in the morning? Ready? Yes, it's ready. All the financial media have been notified, 47 in total. Xiaozhou paused. Mr. Shin, there's one more thing. The Goo family sent someone with a message. Jinting Goo would like to meet with you. Jinting Goo. I stopped in my tracks and turned to look at her. Sahan Goo's father. Yes, he said he wants to discuss a settlement with you, reconciliation. I couldn't help but let out a laugh. Go back and tell them I don't discuss reconciliation with murderers. Xiaozhou was clearly taken aback by the words murderers, pausing for 2 seconds before nodding. Understood, Mr. Shin. I walked into the office and poured myself a glass of water. Beyond the floor-to-ceiling window, Jiangqing's nightscape glittered like a river of stars. Half of the landmark buildings in this most prosperous part of the city once belonged to the Goo Corporation. Now, the lights in the Goo Corporation tower were mostly dimmed, like a lighthouse in the process of going out. The phone powered on, and over 100 messages and 46 missed calls flooded in instantly. Most of them were from Gu Sahan, a few were from Lin Yue's number. I tapped on the voice message Lin Yue had sent. Her voice was sharp and urgent. Shinqinghe, stop pretending. So what if you rented a luxury car? Sahan said you have nothing to do with the Shin family at all. You just hired a fake driver to put on an act. Let me tell you, I've seen this kind of trick plenty of times. Next one. Did you hire someone to manipulate Goo Corporation stocks? Do you think Si-Han will come back too? You just because of that. Dream on. He's with me now, and we're about to get married. Then another, with a noticeably softer tone, probing. Sister, were those news articles you're doing? Are you really that capable? Then, could you please spare Goo Corporation? For the sake of the baby in my belly. The child is innocent. The last one is a voice message. The background is noisy, like a fancy restaurant. Her voice is much lower, but the undeniable panic still slips through. Sis, could you please not tell anyone about my mom? She's old and can't handle the shock. What happened before was all a misunderstanding. I can give you money. I turned off the voice messages and didn't reply. Walking to my office desk and sitting down, I pressed the intercom. Have the legal department send me the second wave of press releases scheduled for tomorrow. The fall of the Goo Group would come step by step. Today was only the first step. The stock price hit the limit down, and banks called in their loans. Tomorrow morning, the second step would be released. The Goo Group suspected of commercial fraud, with several major suppliers filing joint lawsuits. The day after tomorrow would bring the third step, evidence of Gu Xinting's malicious acquisition of Qinghe Textile back in the day. Every step struck at the very lifeline of the Goo Group. The matter of Lin Yue and her mother is another thread that needs to be coordinated. While reviewing the documents, there was a knock on the office door. Come in. The door opened, and the assistant walked in quickly with a peculiar expression. Mr. Gu downstairs is a bit out of control. He's shouting your name in the lobby, and the security guards can hardly restrain him. Without looking up, I said, let him shout. He's even kneeling down. My hand paused for a moment. Gu Sahan knelt, the eldest young master of the Gu family, who was as proud as a peacock, and the man who hadn't even bothered to give me a proper glance for 3 years, was actually kneeling in the lobby of the Shin Corporation building, many people watching. Yes, there were still some employees who hadn't left work in the lobby, and they all saw it. Someone recorded a video and has already posted it online. No need to stop it. I flipped a page of the document. Just have the PR department keep an eye on it. By the way, once the video has spread enough, release the news that the Gu Corporation is about to be jointly sued by its suppliers tomorrow. Make the headline gut-wrenching. Heir of the Gu family kneels and begs. Ex-wife remains cold and unyielding. Survival of Gu Corporation hangs by a thread. The assistant paused for a moment, then nodded. Understood. He turned to leave, but I stopped him. Wait a moment. Is there anything else? Miss, how long has he been kneeling? The assistant glanced at his watch. Almost 20 minutes. I paused for a moment. Have the front desk bring him a glass of water. Don't mention that I arranged it. The assistant left. I continued reading the documents, but the words before me seemed a bit blurry. I didn't witness Gu Sahan kneeling in the hall with my own eyes, but I could imagine it, a man of such pride, suited up and kneeling on the highly polished marble floor, surrounded by a circle of security guards and a crowd of onlookers, with countless phones held up high. His reputation, his dignity, his status as the eldest son of the Gu family, all shattered into pieces in that moment. I once thought that seeing this scene would feel satisfying, but to be honest, no, that feeling was like eating a candy that had long since gone bad. You thought it would be sweet, only to bite into it and find nothing but emptiness inside. The phone rang again. This time it wasn't Gu Sahan's number, but the landline from the Gu family's old residence. I picked up, and on the other end came an old, commanding voice. Xinqinghe, Elder Master Gu. I recognized the voice, the grandfather of Gu Sahan, the father of Gu Group's founder Gu Xingting, now 85 years old. In the 3 years of marriage, he was the only one in the Gu family who had treated me with a trace of decency. Sahan is kneeling outside your company building. Did you know that? I know. How long are you planning to make him kneel? He chose to kneel on his own. It has nothing to do with me. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the phone. My child. Old Master Gu's voice suddenly softened. I know the Gu family has wronged you. I know something about what happened to your father, but I had already stepped back from the company by then. It was Xingting's decision. I couldn't stop him. I didn't say anything. I've seen how much you've suffered in the Gu family these past 3 years. Sahan has been spoiled by his father and doesn't know what's good for him. I don't like Yue either. She's flashy and not a decent person. But Xinghe, the Gu Corporation is the life's work of 3 generations of the Gu family. It's the livelihood of thousands of people. You can't just, old master, I interrupted him. There's no point in saying this to me. Letting the Gu Corporation go bankrupt is my goal, not because Gu Sahan wronged me, but because Gu Xingting owes my father a life. If you really want to save the Gu Corporation, have Gu Xingting come see me, kneel before my father's portrait, and confess his crime. Xingting, he won't come. Then there's nothing to talk about, old sir. It's late. You should get some rest. Xinghe. I hung up the phone, walking to the floor-to-ceiling window. I looked down. From the 58th floor, the ground below was nearly indistinguishable, but I knew that in the lobby downstairs, a man I once loved was kneeling there, waiting for an answer I no longer intended to give. The phone vibrated again. Text messages from Gu Sahan kept popping up in rapid succession. Xinghe. I'm still downstairs at your company. I'm not leaving. I'll kneel right here until you're willing to see me. You're right. In these 3 years, I've never really listened to you. Now I want to listen. You can talk for as long as you want, and I'll listen. I looked into Lin Yue. Her mother really did work as a maid in the Shen household. I had someone dig up the old case files and saw the theft report. Xinghe. I didn't know about any of this. I truly didn't. I'm also looking into what happened with my father. Give me some time, and I'll get to the bottom of it. If it really turns out that the Gu family owes you, I'll spend my whole life paying it back. I was about to turn off the screen when the last text message came in. Xinghe, have you ever considered that I was also kept in the dark? I stared at this line of text for a long time. He was right. 25 years ago, Gu Sahan was only 4 years old. Of course, he had no idea what his father had done. Like me, at an ignorant and innocent age, he was swept along by the grudges of the previous generation, pushed toward our respective fates. But so what? He doesn't know what happened 25 years ago, but he knows what he did over the past 3 years. He knows how he treated me, how he gave me the cold shoulder, how he had an affair, and how he shamelessly doted on another woman right in front of me. These are not the grievances of the previous generation. These are the choices he made himself. I turned off the screen and walked back to sit at my desk. The assistant came in again. Miss, there's something you need to decide on. The draft for tomorrow morning's press conference is ready, but the PR department is asking whether we should include the news of your divorce from Gu Sahan. No need. The press conference will only cover the Gu Corporation's business issues. Personal disputes should not be brought to the table. Understood. The assistant hesitated for a moment. There's one more thing. Lin Yue posted on Weibo, saying that you faked your identity, that you only rented luxury cars for show, and that you, saying, what about me, saying that you won't live past 3 days, that the advanced stage cancer diagnosis is real, from a genuine medical report with the hospital's official stamp on it. I raised an eyebrow. I almost forgot about that. That fake medical report said I had terminal pancreatic cancer and wouldn't live more than 3 days. Today is day 1, according to that report. I have 2 more days to live. How many people have viewed Lin Yue's Weibo post? The reposts have already exceeded 30,000. The comments are all sympathizing with her, calling an innocent pregnant woman who was retaliated against by her ex-wife. I leaned back in my chair and suddenly found it a bit amusing. Let her post it, better yet, have her share that fake medical report as well, right when she's making the biggest scene. Have the legal team release the evidence of Lu Wentao accepting bribes to falsify the report for her. Oh, and the complaints submitted through the hospital's side should be closed out by then too. Yes, miss, the assistant nodded, flipped open the tablet to check the schedule. After tomorrow's press conference, you have a video call with New York. The day after tomorrow at noon, old Master Shin is coming from Kyoto. He says he wants to see you. Grandfather is coming. Yes, the old master says the Jiangqing matter should be wrapped up. Don't let it drag on too long. I fell silent for a moment. Old Master Shin, the head of the Shin family in the capital, and my grandfather, after Qinghe Textile ran into trouble back then, he sent someone to bring me back from the south to the capital and raised me himself. He taught me how to do business, how to strategize and plan, and also how to endure and wait. The old man is getting impatient. I smiled. Let him wait 2 more days. Things here will be over soon. The assistant left. The office fell quiet again. I walked over to the floor-to-ceiling window and looked out at the city ablaze with lights. 3 days ago, I was still the obscure young mistress of the Gu family, wearing old clothes to the vegetable market, ordered around by my mother-in-law, mocked by the nanny, and treated like a ghost by Gu Sihan. 3 days later, the entire city of Jiangqing knows my surname is Shin, and right now, that once arrogant young master of the Gu family is kneeling beneath my company building. Fate can shift from sunshine to storm in the blink of an eye, sometimes so fast that people don't even have time to flinch. The phone screen lit up again. It wasn't a text message, but a news alert. The headline read, "Employees of the Gu Corporation work late into the night, awaiting news. Thousands of lives hanging by a thread." I stared at the headline, my fingers hovering over the screen for a long time. Finally, I sent a message to my assistant, add 1 more item to tomorrow's press release. After the Gu Group goes into bankruptcy liquidation, the Shin Group will give priority to hiring former Gu employees, with no changes to salary or benefits. The assistant replied quickly, "Miss, this wasn't part of the original plan." Added up, understood. 3 seconds later, the assistant sent another message, "Miss, you've gone soft." I did not reply. Outside the window, the night in the river city was too thick to dissolve. Behind one lit window in some building, Gu Sihan was probably still kneeling there, his knees pressed against the cold marble floor, waiting for a woman he thought might still change her mind. But what he didn't know was that woman had already died 3 years ago, on their wedding anniversary. In the candlelight of that restaurant, the one who walked out alive was the sole heir of the Shin family in the capital, here to collect a debt. Chapter 4, Fake Medical Report in the Hospital. I was woken up by the ringing of my phone. Opening my eyes, I saw that it was already light outside the floor-to-ceiling window. I was lying on the bed in the office suite, having fallen asleep directly on the sofa the night before while reviewing documents until 3 in the morning, and my assistant had moved me to the bed. It rang many times before I finally answered. On the other end was Lin Yue's voice, shrill like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. "Shin Qinghe, have you lost your mind? How dare you expose my mom's business? Do you know she was trapped at the beauty salon entrance this morning? Someone smashed the door. Are you satisfied now?" I sat up, massaged my temples, and said, "What are you talking about? Don't play dumb. The news is all about my mother, stealing jewelry, stealing trade secrets, fleeing under an alias. You made it all up." My mother said she didn't steal anything. On what grounds do you slander her without a shred of evidence? I picked up the tablet from the nightstand and tapped on the news. The headline had already changed. The mistress of the Gu family's heir has had her background exposed. Her mother once worked as a maid for the Shin family and is suspected of stealing the employer's possessions. Below it was a related news item, update on the Gu family's capital chain rupture. 3 major suppliers filed joint lawsuit, claiming over $2 billion in total compensation. The 2 news items hung together like twin bombs, blasting the Gu family and Lin Yue sky high. "Miss Lin," I began calmly, "I had the news released, but whether the content is nonsense, you know better than I do. The set of jade jewelry your mother stole from the Shin family back then. You wore one of the earrings from that set just last month to a charity gala. Should I pull up the photos for comparison?" Lin Yue's voice faltered. "You, how do you know?" I also know that your mother used that stolen business proposal to get in touch with Gu Ting and managed to push her daughter into high society. The goal from the very beginning was Gu Han. Miss Lin, you think you're Gu Han's one true love, but you're just a pawn your mother used to climb up the social ladder. You're lying. Lin Yue's voice trembled violently. What I have with Han is real. Who are you, a dying woman, to say these things? Aren't you in the late stages of pancreatic cancer? Aren't you supposed to have only 3 days left? Yesterday was the first day, today is the second, and tomorrow will be the third. Let's see how much longer you can keep up this act. Yes, the medical report. I leaned against the headboard, watching the sunrise outside the window. Miss Lin, speaking of the medical report, there's something I need to remind you about. Dr. Lu Wentao was taken away by the police this morning. The other end of the line suddenly went silent. It was so quiet it felt like someone had pressed the mute button. What? Lu Wentao, chief physician in the oncology department at the First People's Hospital. You paid him 2 million yuan to fake a terminal pancreatic cancer diagnosis in my medical report. I enunciated each word. At 7 this morning, the Health Commission and the Public Security Bureau launched a joint operation and took him away. The charges are accepting bribes and falsifying medical documents. Lin Yue's breathing became rapid. Impossible. You're lying to me. Do you have proof? You mean that physical examination report with the official stamp? I chuckled. Miss Lin, why do you think I was so quick to sign the divorce agreement yesterday? Because I knew that report was fake. I knew it from start to finish. All the effort you put into setting that trap was nothing but a joke in my eyes. You, Lin Yue's voice suddenly turned hysterical. You knew it was fake all along, and you still signed it. You did it on purpose. You wanted Han to be with me, just so you could destroy everything. You crazy woman. The crazy one is you, I said calmly. Lin Yue, your mother stole from mine back in the day, pushing my parents from hardship to ruin. 25 years later, you come along to steal my husband, trying to take over my place. You mother and daughter are cut from the same mold, aren't you? Too bad. For you, this time, you're not dealing with the weak and easily bullied Shin family from back then. I didn't steal, and my mom didn't steal either. Your Shin family has so much money. What's the harm in taking a little? You're not going to die. My hand holding the phone suddenly tightened. Not going to die. Lin Yue, you make it sound so easy. My mom was blamed by my dad for losing those things and hid in her room crying all night. The next day, my dad jumped off a building, and my mom had a heart attack that couldn't be saved. You say no one is going to die. There was silence on the other end of the line. Lin Yue, you and your mother owe my family more than just money. You owe us 2 lives. That's just because your Shin family had no luck. What does that have to do with my mother? Lin Yue screamed on the other end of the phone. Don't be too smug, Shinchingha. My mother said that back then, your family owed her, and she was just taking back what was rightfully hers. Rightfully hers, yes. My mother said when she worked as a maid for your family back then, you treated her terribly. So what if she took a few things? Just because you're rich, you think you're so great. I close my eyes and take a deep breath. Lin Yue, I don't want to argue with you anymore. The evidence regarding your mother's case back then has already been handed over to the police. Let the law decide. As for your fake medical report, Lu Wentao has already confessed. The 2 million you spent was charged to the supplementary card Gu Han gave you, and the transaction records are perfectly clear. I only asked your aunt to help me check on your health. I never asked her to fake anything, whether you did or not. You can tell that to the police. Oh, and let me tell you something. My people just found out that the pregnancy you're carrying is at 16 weeks, not the 10 weeks you claimed. That means you were already 6 weeks pregnant before you even got together with Gu Han. Do I need to help you look up the biological father of the child? There was a sound of something shattering from Lin Yue's end, followed by a long silence. You don't dare. She finally spoke, her voice turning low and venomous. Shinchingha, you don't have the guts. If you dare harm the child in my belly, Han will never let you off. Is that so? I laughed. Then tell him to come find me right now. I'm at the company. He kneeled downstairs at my company last night. His legs must be numb by now, right? Call him and ask if he can even stand up. Han kneeled downstairs at your company. Lin Yue's voice completely changed. Impossible. Han would never kneel to anyone. You're lying. Take a look at the news, Miss Lin. While you were busy deleting Weibo comments last night, your Gu Han was already kneeling in the lobby of Shin's building for 4 full hours. It was filmed the entire time, and the video has already surpassed 5 million views. TSK, TSK. The crown prince of the Gu group kneels in devotion, while his ex-wife remains cold as frost. How's that for a headline? Lin Yue hung up the phone. I tossed my phone onto the bed and got ready to get up. But before long, my stomach started churning. The gastric trouble I developed over the past 3 years in the Gu household, from irregular meals, has been flaring up more and more frequently lately. On the nightstand were the medicine and warm water my assistant had prepared. I took 2 pills and finally began to feel a little better. When Secretary Xiaozhou knocked and entered, she saw the state I was in and quickly came over to support me. Mr. Shin, you don't look well. Shall I call a doctor? No need. I waved my hand. How are the preparations for the press conference? Everything is ready. It will start at 9 sharp. Xiaozhou hesitated for a moment. Mr. Shin, there are many reporters outside. Probably over 100. Some are from the financial section, and some have come all the way from Kyoto. The Gu Corporation incident has already topped the trending list. Let them wait. I stood up and walked into the bathroom, splashing my face with cold water. The woman in the mirror had a pale complexion, but her eyes were very bright. At 32, there were hardly any visible signs of time on this face, just a few fine lines at the corners of my eyes. The ones Gu Sihan had provoked over the past 3 years. I changed into a different outfit, a black tailored skirt suit, crisp and cut, with no unnecessary adornments. I put on the pearl earrings my grandfather gave me and pressed my lips together in front of the mirror. Ms. Shin, Xiaozhou said outside the door. Old Master Gu's on the phone again, asking if you would take the call. Just hang up. And Gu Xingting's secretary also called, saying Gu Xingting would like to meet with you. Time and place to be decided by you. Tell him to wait at my father's grave. Xiaozhou was taken aback for a moment, then said, Yes, Mr. Shin. I took out an old photo frame from the drawer. In the picture was a family of 3 from 25 years ago, my mother, wearing a floral dress, holding me in her arms, and my father standing beside her with a gentle smile. That photo was taken before Qinghe Textiles ran into trouble, and it was the last family portrait we ever took together. Dad, Mom, I said softly, after today's press conference, the Gu Corporation will be nearly finished. Just give me a few more days, and I'll make Gu Xingting kneel before you and confess his guilt. My phone buzzed, a text message from Sihan Gu. Is everything they're saying in the news true? Did Lin Yue's mother steal from your family back then? I didn't reply. Another message. That medical report was fake too. You don't have cancer. Still no reply. Third one. Qinghe, I knelt outside your company building all night last night. I'm not asking for anything else. Just for you to tell me the truth once. Did you or did you not have a terminal illness? I looked at the text message and was silent for a long time, then typed a line and sent it. I've never had a terminal illness, but in the past 3 years at the Gu household, every day felt like waiting to die. After sending it, I turned off my phone and tossed it into my bag, pushing open the office door. 2 rows of senior executives were already standing in the corridor. Everyone was waiting for me. President Shin, good morning. President Shin, I nodded and walked toward the elevator. Just as the elevator doors were about to close, I saw a figure stumbling down the end of the corridor. It was Gu Sihan. Somehow, he had made it upstairs. His hair was disheveled, his eyes bloodshot, his suit covered in wrinkles, with 2 gray smudges rubbed into the knees. Qinghe, he called out to me. Shin Qinghe. The elevator doors closed just a second before he could reach them. Inside the confined space, it grew quiet, save for the soft hum of the elevator descending. Xiaozhou, the secretary, glanced at me cautiously. Shinzong, was that Guzong just now? That's my ex-husband. Just ignore him. The elevator arrived at the press hall on the 36th floor. As soon as the doors opened, the camera flashes came pounding down like a torrential rain. I walked onto the stage without changing my expression. The audience was packed solid with journalists, all their cameras and lenses aimed at me. Some reporters had no room to stand and were crouching in the aisles. Ladies and gentlemen, I stood before the microphone, my voice measured. I am Shin Qinghe, CEO of the Shin Group in Kyoto, and also the initiator of the bankruptcy case against the Gu Group. The flashes were so intense they were blinding, regarding the Gu Group's multiple illegal activities, commercial fraud, hostile takeovers, falsified accounts, and more. The legal department of the Shin Group has submitted a complete chain of evidence to the relevant authorities. The main purpose of today's press conference is to make this evidence public. The audience erupted in uproar. Furthermore, I paused. letting my gaze sweep across the room. Regarding the recent online rumors that I am terminally ill with cancer and have less than 3 days to live, I would like to make a clear statement. I am in good health. The so-called medical examination report in question is forged, and the individuals responsible have been taken into police custody. The room erupted. Reporters surged forward with their microphones. Questions flooding in like a tide. Mr. Shin, may I ask why you concealed your identity for 3 years before marrying into the Gu family? President Shin, how will the placement of thousands of employees be handled after the bankruptcy of the Gu Corporation? President Shin, what is your response to Mr. Gu Sahan kneeling down late at night? I raised my hand, and the entire room fell silent. First, the reason I married Gu Sahan is not something I need to explain to anyone. Second, after the Gu Corporation goes bankrupt, the Shin Corporation will give priority to hiring all former Gu Corporation employees, with the same salary and benefits unchanged. Third, I looked into the camera and spoke slowly, enunciating each word. As for Mr. Gu Sahan's kneeling, my response is, let him stay on his knees. The door to the press conference hall was suddenly pushed open forcefully from the outside. Everyone turned to look. The person standing at the door was Gu Jingting, Gu Sahan's father, the true helmsman of the Gu Group. The 68-year-old old man had his white hair combed immaculately, wore a dark gray suit, and leaned on an ebony cane. His face was ashen, and his gaze pierced toward me on the stage like a knife. Shinchingha. His voice echoed through the press hall like a bronze bell. Have you caused enough trouble? All the reporters in the hall turned their cameras toward him in unison. The flash of the camera illuminated Gu Jingting's face. Twisted with rage, I stood on the stage, looking down at him. Mr. Gu, I said with a slight smile, welcome to my turf. Chapter 5. I am the one pulling the strings. Gu Jingting stood at the entrance of the press hall, his cane striking the marble floor heavily with a dull thud. Shinchingha, what exactly are you trying to do? His gaze cut toward her like a knife. You fabricated those old scandals, crashed the stock price of Gu Group, and ruined my son's marriage. Isn't that enough? Not enough. I walked down from the stage, my high heels striking the steps one by one, steady and firm. Mr. Gu, you know in your heart that everything I said is true. Qinghe Textiles, the death of my father Shin Huayuan, the factory and orders you swallowed up. Which of those did I fabricate? A twitch ran through the corner of Gu Jingting's mouth. That was 25 years ago. Business is like a battlefield, and victories and defeats are common. Your father mismanaged his company and jumped to his own death. Why are you blaming me for that? Mismanaged. I stopped 3 paces in front of him. Gu Jingting, you conspired with the CFO of Qinghe Textile to cook the books and transfer assets, then hired someone to fabricate that suspicious order, dragging the factory into a web of triangular debt. My father came to you for help, and you said you could assist, on the condition that he sign a low-price transfer agreement. When he refused, you colluded with the bank to call in the loan early, and you call that mismanagement. Gu Jingting's face instantly turned ashen. How could you possibly know? All the reporters in the room went wild. When those words came out of Gu Jingting's mouth, it was as good as an admission. The cameras focused on his face, and the flashes captured every minute expression. How could I possibly know? I smiled and turned to the crowd of reporters. Ladies and gentlemen, I was the one who anonymously sent Gu Corp's internal financial records to major financial media outlets a few days ago. I also filed the whistleblower report with the CSRC accusing Gu Corp of financial fraud, and that's far from everything I've done over the past 3 years. Do I need to go through it all, one by one? Gu Jingting's pupils contracted sharply. He suddenly turned to look at a middle-aged man beside him, presumably his secretary. The secretary's face was pale, drenched in sweat, and furiously tapping on his phone. Did you bribe someone from the Gu Group? Who's the mole? Gu Jingting's voice turned hoarse. No need to bribe anyone. I took a stack of documents from my assistant and opened the first page. All the evidence proving your illegal operations, financial data from the past 5 years, internal meeting minutes, supplier contracts, and bank loan agreements of the Gu Group, was obtained legally. Want to know why? I turned the stack of documents toward the reporters, because the signatory of these documents, Jinjini, the chief financial officer of the Gu Group, is from the Kyodoshin family. Gu Jingting stepped back, nearly losing his balance before being steadied by his secretary, Director Chen. Impossible. She's worked for me for 6 years. Exactly 6 years ago, I recommended her to the Goo Corporation through a headhunting firm. Her resume was impeccable, her abilities outstanding, her loyalty unquestionable, except her loyalty was never to you. I closed the file. Gu Jingting, do you know why your son ended up marrying me? Gu Jingting stared at me, his mouth opening and closing. Unable to speak, do you realize that his getting to know me was also a move in this chess game? 3 years ago, at that charity gala, who handed him the invitation, who introduced me to him at the gala, have you ever looked into that? Gu Jingting's breathing grew heavier and heavier, and he was speechless. You've never looked into it. Because Gu Sihan marrying an orphan girl with no family background or connections suited your purpose perfectly, you thought a woman like that would be easy to control, wouldn't take away the Gu family's fortune, and wouldn't interfere with your business. Then, whenever you wanted your son to marry a well-matched heiress, you could kick me out at any time, just as you treated the workers at Qinghe Textile back in the day, toss them away after using them. The entire room was so quiet that a pin drop could be heard. Gu Jingting's hand gripping his cane was trembling. Over these past 3 years, I turned to face all the journalists present, my voice not loud but every word clear and deliberate. From the very first day I married into the Gu family, I have been gathering evidence. I endured my mother-in-law's disdain, my husband's cold indifference, and the other woman's provocations, not because I am weak or easy to bully, but because I needed time. I needed time for Director Chen to gradually transfer all the incriminating evidence of the Gu Corporation's illegal activities. I needed time to uncover the truth behind Lin Meifeng's theft years ago and the motive for her daughter Lin Yue to approach Gu Sihan. I needed time to find everyone who had a hand in driving my father to his death, and make sure not one of them gets away. Now, I handed the documents to the head of legal beside me. The evidence is complete, and everyone is accounted for. It's time to close the net. Gu Jingting's cane slipped from his hand and clattered loudly onto the floor. No one went to pick it up. Everyone's gaze fell upon the once omnipotent leader of the Gu family, watching him as if he were a tree uprooted, his splendor and authority withering away in an instant. Qinghe, Gu Jingting's voice became hoarse and feeble. What exactly do you want? What I want is very simple. I looked at him, my gaze so calm it was almost cruel. You kneel before my father's portrait, bow 3 times, and confess your crimes with your own mouth. Then the Gu Corporation can go bankrupt and face liquidation as it should. You'll serve the prison time you deserve. I won't ask for a single day more. You're trying to ruin me. You took my father's life back then. I'm just collecting a debt now. The door to the press hall was pushed open once again. The one who entered this time was Gu Sihan. He stumbled through the crowd, his suit covered in wrinkles, his hair as messy as a madman's, and his eyes as red as if he had stayed up for 3 days and 3 nights. He rushed up to me and grabbed my wrist. Qinghe, let me explain, Let go. He didn't let go. Instead, he held on tighter. I didn't know any of this. I really didn't. Why didn't you tell me sooner? If you had, I could have. Could have what? I shook off his hand. Could have turned against your father. Could have overturned my dad's case. Could have sent your own father to prison for the sake of justice. Sihan Gu, could you really do that? His lips trembled. I can do it, he said through gritted teeth. Qinghe, just say the word. I can do it. I looked at him, looking at this man I once loved. I saw regret, pain, and struggle in his eyes, along with a flicker of something familiar, the same light that had sparked in his gaze 3 years ago at the charity gala, the first time he saw me. But it was too late. You can't do it, and I don't need you to do anything for me. Gu Sihan, we ended long ago. Your infidelity is a fact. Your cold shoulder is a fact. The way you let Lin Yue humiliate me at the Civil Affairs Bureau entrance is a fact. None of that has anything to do with grievances from 25 years ago. Those were the choices you made yourself, because I thought you had a terminal illness. Yue said you didn't have much time left, and I didn't want you to see me. See you what? I raised an eyebrow. See you falling for someone else, or see you moving another woman into my home while I'm still alive. Gu Sihan fell silent. Let me tell you what kind of person I was 3 years ago. I took a step back, putting distance between us. I was willing to learn to cook for you, even though my hands were covered in blisters from burns. I was willing to wait for you to come home every day, even though you always came back reeking of someone else's perfume. I let your mother order me around because I thought marrying you was my choice, and I had to live with it. But Gu Sihan, what did you ever give me in return? You gave me an empty wedding room, an indifferent husband, and a mistress carrying your child. That medical report was fake, but my sincerity was real. You trampled on it. Gu Sahan's eyes turned red. Xinghe, I was wrong, he said, his voice hoarse. I truly know I was wrong. Give me one chance. Let me atone for my sins. I'll do anything, anything at all. I looked at him. Then go and put your own father on the stand. Do it yourself. The room fell silent once more. Gu Jingting let out a hoarse roar from the side. Gu Sahan, how dare you? Gu Sahan turned his head and looked at his father. The father and son's eyes collided in the air, sizzling like two pieces of red-hot iron. Dad, Gu Sahan said, is what Xinghe said true? 25 years ago, did you really drive her father to his death? I am your father, Gu Jingting roared. Are you now questioning me for the sake of a woman? She's not just any woman, she's my wife, Gu Sahan roared back, his voice reverberating throughout the entire press hall. Do you know that I've been married to her for 3 years without even knowing who she was? You've made me a laughingstock. You've turned me into a bastard. The father and son's argument grew louder and louder, and the journalists' cameras were busy. Unsure of whom to focus on, I stepped back 2 paces and quietly said to my assistant, have someone keep an eye on things to avoid any trouble. I'll leave first. The assistant nodded and motioned for 2 security guards to stay close to me. I turned and walked toward the side door of the press hall. Xinghe, Gu Sahan's voice came from behind. I did not look back. The corridor outside the side door was silent, a stark contrast to the clamor in the press hall. I leaned against the wall and closed my eyes. President Shin, are you all right? Little Zhou, my secretary, looked at me with concern. It's nothing. I opened my eyes and adjusted my cuffs. What's on the agenda next? Video conference with New York at 11, meeting with Old Master Shin at 2 in the afternoon, and at 7 in the evening. You need to rest. Xiao Zhou's tone was firm. You've been working continuously for over 20 hours. Your complexion looks terrible. We'll see this afternoon. A flurry of hurried footsteps came from the end of the corridor. Lin Yue, she was wearing a wrinkled pink trench coat, her makeup half smudged, and her eyes were swollen like walnuts. When she saw me, she stopped abruptly, as if rooted to the ground. Xinghe, her voice trembled violently. Are you satisfied? I looked at her and said nothing. Si-Han doesn't want me anymore. The Gu family all call me a jinx, and my mom's beauty salon was trashed. It's all because of you. You already have everything, so why do you still have to come and take what's mine? Yours. I tilted my head. Miss Lin, Gu Sahan is my husband, not your possession. You're the one stealing someone else's husband, and now you're accusing me of taking something. You two stopped loving each other long ago. Lin Yue shrieked. He doesn't love you. The one he loves is me. Is that so? I looked calmly at her belly. Then if he finds out the child you're carrying isn't his, will he still love you? Lin Yue's face turned ashen in an instant. The corridor was extremely quiet. You're talking nonsense. Whether I'm talking nonsense, you know very well yourself. I adjusted my cuffs, my tone unhurried. A 16-week fetus can undergo amniocentesis for DNA testing. If you insist the child is Gu Sahan's, I wouldn't mind arranging a public test and having it live streamed to the whole internet. Would you dare? Lin Yue opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her legs gave way, and she collapsed directly onto the floor of the corridor. Without looking back at her, I turned and stepped into the elevator. Just as the elevator doors closed, I finally heard her burst into tears. The cry was sharp and desperate, piercing through the entire corridor. The elevator rose slowly, the numbers ticking up one by one. I leaned against the elevator wall and looked at my reflection in the stainless steel doors. The face staring back was impeccably made up. No tear stains, no trace of fatigue. Even the lipstick was as flawless as if it had just been applied. But only I knew that beneath that face, something had already shattered into pieces that could never be put back together again. The phone buzzed once. The last text message from Gu Sahan contained only 3 words. I'm sorry. I stared at those 3 words, my finger hovering over the delete key for 2 seconds. But in the end, I still didn't press it. I put the text message away in the trash folder, then turned my phone over and placed its screen down in my palm. The elevator reached the top floor, and the doors opened. The secretary had already come up ahead of time and handed me a glass of warm water. Mr. Shin, the groundskeeping at your father's cemetery has been completed. Old Master Shin's private plane lands at 3:00 p.m. Good. I took a sip of water and walked toward the office. Outside, the floor-to-ceiling window, the sky over Jiangqing was a dull gray, as if rain was on the way. The live broadcast of the press conference was still playing on the screen downstairs, its sound faintly drifting up through the elevator shaft. Gu Jingting was roaring, Gu Sahan was interrogating, and Lin Yue was screaming. The entire Gu family came crashing down before my eyes, and this is just the beginning. Chapter 6. The identity of the Shin family in Kyoto, at 2:40 p.m., Chiha Cemetery on the outskirts of Jiangxing City. As expected, it began to rain. It was not a downpour, but a fine, persistent autumn rain, falling on the bluestone slabs and shrouding the entire cemetery in a gray, misty haze. Holding a black umbrella, I stood alone before two side-by-side tombstones. They were very old, the inscriptions worn faint by time, but with a closer look they could still be made out. Tomb of the late father, Shin Huayuan. Tomb of the late mother, Shin Yunji. I placed two bouquets of white chrysanthemums in front of the graves. Father, mother, your daughter has come to see you. Rainwater dripped down the edge of the umbrella, splashing tiny droplets at my feet. After waiting 25 years, this day has finally come. I've exposed everything Gu Xinting did. His Gu group will enter bankruptcy liquidation by the day after tomorrow at the latest. I crouched down, wiping the mud stains from my father's tombstone with a handkerchief. But this isn't enough. I promised Grandpa that I would make him kneel before you and confess. Footsteps sounded behind me. I didn't turn around, but I knew who it was. The footsteps were steady, each step carrying a calmness born of years of experience. The rhythm of the cane tapping the ground was one I had heard for many years, and it had never changed. Grandfather, little girl. I turned around. Old Master Shin Buiyuan of the Shin family was wearing a dark gray Chinese-style frock with fabric knots, his silver-white hair combed meticulously, leaning on a boxwood cane. At 87, his back remained ramrod straight. Behind him followed four attendants in black suits, standing in a row in the rainy cemetery like a silent wall. You've lost weight, Shin Buiyuan observed, his brow slightly furrowed. Your eyes are red too. Have you been crying? No. I looked away. It's the wind. Dust got in my eyes. You've made that same face when lying since you were a child. Shin Buiyuan walked over to the gravestone and looked down at the name carved on it. Huayuan. Your daughter's all grown up now. She's got more nerve than you ever did. You can rest easy down there. The rain suddenly began to pour. The attendant opened a larger umbrella and held it over Uncle Shin. The old man waved his hand, signaling them to step back. He bent down and placed a bouquet of white chrysanthemums before the tombstone with his own hands. 25 years, he said. Back then, as your father, I couldn't protect you. Now, all I can do is lend your daughter a hand. Huayuan, don't blame me. I looked at my grandfather's profile. On that weather-beaten face, a drop of rain slid down the furrows of his wrinkles. It was impossible to tell whether it was rain or something else. Grandfather, the wind is picking up. Let's go back to the car. Shin Buiyuan did not move. Little girl, what do you plan to do about that young man from the Gu family? You mean Gu Sahan? I was taken aback. I've divorced him. There's nothing to do about him now. His company will go bankrupt. His family will fall apart, and he'll become an ordinary person with nothing left. He knelt downstairs at your company building all night last night. That was his own choice. He went to see Lin Yue this morning and had a paternity test done. The child isn't his. I fell silent. He's in the hospital now, Shin Buiyuan said. After Lin Yue was driven out of the Gu family by him, she ran to the hospital rooftop and tried to jump. He went to stop her, and the two of them tumbled down the steps. Did Lin Yue miscarry? I asked quickly. Shin Buiyuan shook his head. Gu Sahan ended up underneath her, shielding her. The baby is fine, but Gu Sahan has a fractured right arm and 2 broken ribs. He's currently lying in the People's Hospital. Something inside me lurched heavily, then was suppressed again. It was his own business to save Lin Yue. He risked his own life to save a woman who had cheated on him. Shin Buiyuan's voice carried a complex undertone. Little girl, what do you think he was after? Peace of mind. Because I once told him that no one tried to stop my father when he jumped off the rooftop. He probably wanted to prove he was different from his own father. Do you think he proved it? I looked at my father's photo on the tombstone and fell silent. Raindrops pattered against the bluestone slabs. Grandfather, I changed the subject. You flew all the way from Kyoto. It can't be just to ask me about Gu Sahan. Shin Buiyuan turned around and looked at me. Some people in Kyoto are getting restless. Leaning on his cane, he gazed at the gray, hazy skyline beyond the cemetery. The commotion you've stirred up in Jiangxing has torn a hole in the low-key image the Shin family has deliberately maintained all these years. Some people think you've gone too far and want you to back off. Who thinks I've gone too far? Your second uncle, I let out a cold laugh, Shin Jinghong, from the Shin family's second branch, has been leveraging the family's resources in the capital over the years to run numerous Illicit businesses. His greatest fear is someone dragging the Shin family name into the public eye, because as people dig deeper, his secrets will no longer stay hidden. I have nothing to do with him. What happens to him has nothing to do with me. He is your second uncle. Where was he the night my mother jumped off the building? I stared at Shin Yuen, grandfather, when my mother went into cardiac arrest. I was the only one at home. I called every relative. Second uncle said he was at a business dinner. Later, I waited in the living room holding my mother's body for the funeral home to arrive. I was 3 years old that year. A 3-year-old doesn't remember much, but I remember how cold that living room was. Shin Yuen did not speak. Grandfather, in the past 25 years, I have let no one off. I cannot let Gu Jingting off. I cannot let Lin Meifeng off. And I will not let my second uncle off either. So your next target is your second uncle. You must be aware of the role he played as the intermediary back then. How did the business proposal stolen by Lin Meifeng end up in Gu Jingting's hands? It required someone who knew both parties to set up the scheme. At that time, Shin Qinghong had just been appointed by you to take charge of the Shin family's investment projects in Jiangqing. Could there be such a coincidence in this world? Shin Yuen was silent for a long time. Child, how many years have you been investigating? 10 years, I started investigating right after I took over the Shin family at 22. This year, all the evidence is complete. Even if you hadn't come today, I would have come to find you, grandfather. As for second uncle's matter, will you stop me or not? The rain grew heavier and heavier. The attendant tried to hand him the umbrella again, but Shin Yuen pushed it away once more. Rain soaked his silver hair and streamed down his aged face. I bear responsibility for what happened back then. His voice suddenly sounded much older. When your father left for Jiangqing to start his business, I had a fight with him and drove him away. I said he was a son of the Shin family, that abandoning business in the capital to run a textile mill in a small southern town was beneath him. Later, when something happened to him, I didn't make it in time. The old man did not continue. Girl, whatever you want to do, your grandfather won't stop you. He struck his cane heavily against the ground. But promise me one thing. Go ahead. What about that kid from the Gu family? No, Gu Sihan. What do you plan to do with him? I didn't expect him to circle back to that topic. After the Gu group goes bankrupt, I'll have someone take over his employees. If he's willing, he can stay on as a junior staff member in the restructured company, but I don't owe him anything, and I won't give him a single cent more. When he fell down the stairs today, the pregnant woman was the one he shielded underneath him. 1 right arm, 2 broken ribs. The doctor said he might never be able to exert force with his right hand again. My heart skipped a beat. Grandpa, what exactly are you trying to say? I'm trying to say that he's different from his father. Shin Yuen looked at me. Gu Jingting is a venomous snake. He bites without spitting out the bones. But that child Gu Sihan, foolish as he may be, he doesn't have his father's ruthlessness. Girl, you're right to hate Gu Jingting, but don't put all your hatred for a father onto another man's head. I didn't answer. The sound of rain drowned out all other noises. After a long while, I finally spoke. Grandpa, let's go back to the car. Your health can't handle this. Shin Yuen cast one last look at the tombstone, then turned around, leaning on his cane. I'm going back to Kyoto this Friday, he said. There's a family meeting. Your second uncle needs to pay for what he did back then, but not in the way you're going about it. Hurting the enemy 1,000 points while costing yourself 800. We Shin family members must act with a sense of propriety. Got it. Shin Yuen took a few steps, then stopped again. That one in the hospital, want to drop by and see him while you're at it? No, the word slipped out, so crisp and clear that even I myself was surprised. Shin Yuen said nothing more. Leaning on his attendants for support, he walked toward the black sedan parked outside the cemetery amid the rain. The old man's silhouette looked exceptionally aged and lonely. I remained alone before the gravestone, standing there for a very, very long time. Rain soaked the edges of my shoes. My phone buzzed repeatedly in my pocket. I took it out to check. Calls from the hospital, messages from Gu Sihan's assistant, breaking news alerts on social media. The crown prince of the Gu group had suffered severe injuries trying to save his pregnant, cheating wife, while the head of the Shin family, his ex-wife, was nowhere to be seen at the hospital. The comments section has already Exploded. That's too harsh. Her ex-husband fell that badly and she didn't even go to see him. Don't you know this man cheated? He deserved it. This Miss Shin's methods are too ruthless. She single-handedly brought down the entire Gu family, the cold-blooded female CEO and her abandoned husband. I tucked my phone back into my pocket. The rain kept falling, and the rain and mist. Shiha Cemetery looked like a faded ink wash painting. Every edge and boundary softened by the rain. Dad, I said too. The tombstone, I'm done. I'll continue the rest after I come back from Kyoto. Turning to walk toward the car, I heard the rain behind me suddenly grow louder for a moment. It sounded like someone sighing in the rain. Sliding into the car, I said to the driver, back to the office. When the car drove out of Chiha Cemetery, I happened to glance out the window. Through the rain, another car was parked at the cemetery entrance. A silver-gray Bentley with license plate Jiang A88888. That was Gu Sihan's car. My fingers tightened uncontrollably. As the car slowly passed by, I saw that the driver's seat of the Bentley was empty, the headlights were on, and the hazard lights blinked in the rain, like a drowning moth desperately fluttering its wings. Gu Sihan is at the hospital. Why is his car here? Stop. The car stopped. I turned to look back at the silver-gray Bentley. It sat quietly at the entrance of Chiha Cemetery. The engine still running. The wipers swayed rhythmically as the headlights pierced through the curtain of rain. Who was it waiting for? No. Whom was it mourning? I sent a message to my assistant. Which hospital is Gu Sihan in right now? The reply came quickly. Orthopedics ward, 15th floor of the People's Hospital inpatient building. The surgery on his right arm has just ended, and he's still unconscious. Should we arrange a visit for you? I looked at this message and fell silent for a long time. The rain outside the window grew heavier and heavier. No. I turned off my phone screen. The car started again and drove into the rain. In the rearview mirror, the silver-gray Bentley grew smaller and smaller, until it became a tiny point of light in the rain and mist. It flashed twice, then disappeared. Chapter 7. The mistress's background revealed. On the way back to the company, the rain lightened a bit. The riverside city outside the car window was washed clean, and the neon lights on both sides of the elevated bridge blurred into hazy glows in the mist. I leaned back in my seat, resting my eyes, but my mind kept circling back to that silver-gray Bentley parked at the entrance of Chiha Cemetery. Had Gu Sihan managed to slip out of the hospital? Impossible. His assistant said he was in surgery. Who was that driving his car to my parents' cemetery? Miss. The assistant in the passenger seat turned back, his voice interrupting my thoughts. Lin Meifeng has been taken into custody by the police. She was arrested at her rental apartment at 4 this afternoon. Lin Yue ran away from the hospital and has been out of contact ever since. Lin Yue ran away. I opened my eyes. She just fell down the stairs. How did she not lose the baby? The test results show the fetus has survived. Gu Sihan acted as her cushion, so she only had minor scrapes. The police suspect she may have gone into hiding with an old acquaintance of her mother's, an unlicensed doctor in an urban village who helped Lin Meifeng forge a fake ID card before. I pressed my temples. Notify the police, but don't push too hard. Let her surface on her own. She has no money and no one to rely on. She can't hide for long. She'll come out on her own when the time comes. Understood. The assistant hesitated. Miss, there's one more thing. A lot of posts suddenly appeared online today, exposing your background completely. They say you're the heiress of the Shin family in Kyoto, and that the Shin family has been involved in massive offshore tax evasion in recent years. My uncle's people, most likely. All the troll IPs are traced back to Kyoto. I gave a cold laugh. Shin Jinghong reacted faster than I expected. The press conference had just brought down the Gu family in the morning, and by the afternoon he was already slinging mud at me. Tell the PR department to issue a statement that the Shin family accepts any form of legal investigation. Also, organize the equity structure charts for the 3 companies under my second uncle's name and bring them back to Jingdu on Friday. I turned to my assistant. We'll leave with the old master's private jet. By the time I returned to the office, the sky had already gone pitch black. The lights of the Shin building shone like a lighthouse in the rainy night. The chaos from the previous night had vanished from the lobby. Security was back to normal, and the marble floor was as polished as a mirror, reflecting the giant crystal chandelier on the ceiling. Secretary Xiao Zhou was waiting for me by the elevator. Mr. Shin, a lady has been waiting for you in the reception room for 2 hours. She said her surname is Fong, and she came from downtown Kyoto. Fong. I frowned and searched my memory for that name. I didn't know anyone with the surname Fong. She looks like she's in her 50s, dressed quite plainly, but very polite in her speech. She said you might not know her, but she knew your mother. I paused in my steps. Bring her to my office. 5 minutes later, the office door was knocked on. Woman in her 50s entered, her graying hair tied in a low ponytail. Wearing a faded dark blue coat, her face was weather-beaten, with deep wrinkles at the corners of her eyes, but her eyes were clear, carrying a kind of light that had seen the world yet remained unstained by it. Miss Shin, she stood at the door and gave a reserved little bow. I'm sorry to disturb you. Please, have a seat, I gestured, signaling Xiaozhou to pour tea. You said you knew my mother. The woman sat down on the sofa, placed her hands on her knees, and kept her back straight. My surname is Fong Qing. 25 years ago, I worked as a maid in your house. The hand holding my teacup paused. Fong Qing. I had seen this name in the documents. Lin Yue's mother, Lin Meifeng, had infiltrated the Shin family under the alias Fong Qing back then. Fong Qing. I looked into her eyes. Are you sure your name is Fong Qing? I know what you're doubting. She gave a bitter smile and pulled out a yellowed plastic folder from the cloth bag she was carrying. This is my ID card, my household registration booklet, and my work pass from when I worked at the Shin family. I took the folder and opened it. The work pass had already yellowed, with a photo of a young woman attached to it. The person in the photo had a round face and a shy smile, bearing a faint resemblance to the aged woman standing before me. The name on the ID card is indeed Fong Qing, but it's not Lin Meifeng. Back in the day, Fong Qing's voice dropped low. Lin Meifeng used my ID card. We're from the same village and came out to work together. I later returned to the village to care for my sick mother-in-law and lent her my ID card for a while. I never expected she would use my name. She couldn't continue. My fingers gently traced the yellowed work ID badge. MS. Fong, what brings you to see me today? I'm here to return something. Fong Qing reached into her cloth bag again, pulled out a wrapped bundle, and unfolded it layer by layer. Inside was a palm-sized wooden box. She opened the lid of the wooden box and placed it on the tea table in front of me. The box was lined with dark red velvet, and lying on it was a single jadeite earring. It was a vibrant, dazzling green with excellent color. I recognized it instantly. It was one earring from my mother's jadeite set, the very set that Lin Meifeng stole all those years ago. This is, last month, Lin Meifeng came to me, saying she wanted to return the ID card she took back then. Fong Qing's voice was very calm. Actually, I knew she was just trying to stay out of trouble. She pestered me for a long time, and in the end, she gave me this, saying that if anyone came to investigate, I could trade it for her life. I took it, and then looked up the news. Only then did I find out all the trouble her daughter has caused these past 6 months, and that you were Miss Shin. She raised her head and looked at me. Miss Shin, I'm not asking you to forgive Lin Meifeng for what she did, but I want to plead for her. Her daughter, Lin Yue, still has a child in her womb. Could you, MS, Fong, I interrupted softly, you don't need to plead for anyone. Lin Yue's case will receive a fair judgment under the law. Forgery of medical documents, fraud, and disrupting another's marriage. These charges will carry whatever sentence they deserve. Fong Qing was silent for a long time, then finally nodded. Then I return this earring to you. This thing from 25 years ago should go back where it belongs. 2 other things. I set down my teacup and looked at her. First, back when you were working as a housemaid for the Shin family, did you know a man named Shin Jinghong? Fong Qing's body visibly stiffened. Shin Jinghong. She repeated the name, as if chewing on a bitter taste between her teeth. He was Miss Shin's second uncle. I knew him. Did you ever see him visit the old house? I've seen her. Fong Qing's voice dropped very low. One night when it was pouring rain, I saw him talking to Lin Meifeng in the study. Back then, Lin Meifeng didn't go by that name. She told me her name was Lin Hong. That night, I got up to use the bathroom and heard voices coming from the study. I walked over and saw the second young master standing face to face with Lin Meifeng. Neither of them looked happy. Did you hear what they said? Fong Qing closed her eyes, trying hard to remember. It seemed like the second young master handed Lin Meifeng a stack of something and told her that if she turned it in, she would get money. Lin Meifeng said she was scared. What if they got caught? The second young master said, what is there to be afraid of? If something happens, I'll take the fall. My heart gave a sudden, sharp thump. What was the date of that night? I don't remember. Fong Qing shook her head. All I remember is that the next morning, I saw Lin Meifeng packing her things. She said there was an urgent matter back in her hometown. Then, just a few days later, I heard that Madame Shin's jewelry had gone missing. After Fong Qing left, I sat alone in the office, watching the rainy night scene of Jiangqing through the window. Just as I thought, Lin Meifeng is just a tool. The one who actually handed that business plan out of the Shin family's old residence was Xin Jinghong. My mother's jewelry might have been taken by Lin Meifeng out of her own greed, but that business proposal was definitely my second uncle's doing. He knew the value of that proposal, knew that Shin Huayuan's textile mill in Jiangqing was barely staying afloat. Just why? My dad is his own elder brother. What could have happened between them that made Xin Jinghong act so ruthlessly? The landline on the desk rang. Mr. Shin, came the assistant's voice. The People's Hospital says Gu Sihan is awake. The first thing he said was, the assistant paused. What was it? He asked if Qinghe had come to see me. My hand holding the phone tightened slightly. The rain pattered softly outside the window. Also, the assistant continued. The hospital said Lin Yue just showed up. She went to the building below Gu Sihan's ward and tried to get in, but was stopped by security. Gu Sihan's attending physician said Gu Sihan had made it clear he would not see her. Not see her? Yes. Gu Sihan's exact words were, let her have the child. I'll take care of raising it, but I don't want to see her again. I put down the phone and walked back to the floor-to-ceiling window. The night rain in Jiangqing was still falling. The lights of the People's Hospital's inpatient department glowed like a tiny dot in the distant night sky. Gu Sihan finally drove Lin Yue out of his world, but he probably didn't know that some things, once past, are past, just like my mother's jade earring. Finding one wasn't easy, and as for the other, no one knows where it is. Like a broken marriage, only a few of the shattered pieces can ever be picked up. Some fragments are swept into the corners, never to be found again. The phone screen lights up. A message from the hospital. MS. Shin, hello, this is the orthopedics department at People's Hospital. Mr. Gu Sihan asked me to relay a message to you. He says, I'm sorry, Chilling Cemetery was my first time there. I was 25 years too late. I put down the phone and glanced out at the curtain of rain. The rain seemed endless, so dense that all the gloom of many years had settled into it, stirred up and washed anew. The secretary pushed the door open and entered. Mr. Shin, the private plane to Kyoto is ready. It will take off on Friday morning. All right. Also, the secretary of the second master called, saying that for the Kyoto clan meeting, he would like you to arrive early on Thursday. There are some matters he wishes to discuss with you privately. Private communication. I chuckled. Send this back to him. I'll arrive on Thursday. Tell him to wait. Chapter 8. Gu Sihan's life or death. After an autumn rain, Kyoto's temperature suddenly dropped on Friday. Once out of the airport, I went straight to the Shin family's old residence. The old residence sits in the last undeveloped old neighborhood in the heart of Kyoto. It is a traditional courtyard house with 3 successive courtyards, its gray bricks and dark tiles, and 2 stone lions at the gate polished smooth by the passage of time. I grew up here as a child, then later moved to Jiangqing, but every time I return, the compound seems a little smaller than I remember. Old Shin Yuan's personal secretary was waiting for me at the hanging flower gate. Miss, the master is waiting for you in the study, and the second master is also here. He arrives early. As always, Old Chin didn't respond. He simply bowed slightly and led the way. The carved wooden door to the study was left ajar. Before I even approached, I could hear Shin Jinghong's voice from inside, strong and vigorous. Dad, Qinghe has gone too far with this. The Gu family is quite reputable in Jiangqing, and her actions have dragged the entire Shin family through the mud. Now, if you search the Shin family online, all you find behind the name is infamy, people calling us bullies who throw our weight around, cold and heartless. I pushed the door open. Shin Jinghong's voice stopped abruptly. He was sitting on a rosewood chair across from Shin Yuan, a cup of tea in his hand. When he turned and saw me, his expression shifted from indignation to an unnatural smile. Qinghe is back. Don't take what your second uncle just said to heart. He's thinking about the Shin family. Thinking about the Shin family, I handed my coat to Old Chen and sat down across from Shin Jinghong. Second uncle, have the accounts of your 3 companies in the Cayman Islands ever considered the Shin family? Shin Jinghong's face went stiff in an instant. What nonsense are you talking? What Cayman Islands? I took a stack of documents out of my bag and placed them on the coffee table. This is the equity penetration chart for your 3 companies. After penetrating to the very end, the actual controller is the same name, Shin Jinghong. As for the amount of funds transferred overseas each year through related party transactions, do I need to read it out loud? The air in the study suddenly froze. Shin Jinghong's face visibly shifted from red to white, then from white to livid. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He turned to look at Shin Yuan. Dad, what do you think of her? Think of what? Shin Yuan's voice wasn't loud, but every word was like a nail hammered into the table. Let her read it. It's fine if you don't recite it, I said, pushing the documents in front of Shin Jinghong. Second uncle, during today's clan meeting, there are just 2 questions I want you to answer in front of the entire clan. First, 25 years ago, you gave Lin Meifeng Shin Yuan's business proposal and asked her to pass it to Gu Jingting. Do you admit to that? Shin Jinghong's pupils constricted sharply. Second, I continued, 3 days before the incident, you had a meal with Gu Jingting in a private room at the Kyoto Hotel. The bill from that meal is still recorded in the Shin family's entertainment expenses from that year, and the signatory for reimbursement is your name. What exactly did you and Gu Jingting talk about over that meal? You're investigating me. Shin Jinghong shot to his feet, his chair toppling backward and crashing onto the floor tiles. I am your second uncle. I know you're my second uncle. I also stood up, meeting his eyes squarely. My father was your own elder brother. He's been dead for 25 years. Have you ever visited Chihu Cemetery even once? Do you dare to go? Shin Jinghong's face twisted violently, veins bulging on his forehead. There's nothing I wouldn't dare do. What happened back then had nothing to do with me. Your father was driven to death by Gu Jingting. If you have the guts, go after the Gu family. Why come back and lash out at your own family? The Gu family is finished, I said calmly. Now it's your turn. Enough. Shin Yuan slammed his hand on the table. The study fell silent. The old man rose to his feet, leaning on his cane. His gaze swept across Shin Jinghong's face before landing on mine. The clan meeting will be held at 8 tonight. Jinghong, go back to your own courtyard and sort through everything you've done over the years. At the meeting, make everything clear. Dad, get out. Shin Jinghong gritted his teeth, shot me a fierce glare, then turned and strode out of the study. He slammed the door so hard it rattled. The study fell silent once more. Shin Yuan slowly sat back down in his chair and picked up his teacup, only to find that the tea had gone cold. I called for someone to bring in a fresh cup of hot tea and placed it by his hand. Girl, Shin Yuan sighed, as for your second uncle's matter, what do you plan to do? Submit the evidence to the family council. They will handle it according to the family rules. I paused. But if the council shields him, I will pursue legal action. Misappropriation of funds and disclosure of trade secrets, that's enough to put him away for a few years. Shin Yuan was silent for a long time, then nodded. Is your mother's jewelry still in Lin Meifeng's possession? We recovered 1 earring. The other earring and the necklace are still missing. Lin Meifeng claimed they were sold many years ago. The police are still tracking down the buyer. From outside the window came the sound of wind chimes. The ginkgo tree planted in the courtyard of the old house rustled in the wind, its golden leaves blanketing the ground. Grandfather wants to rest now, Shin Yuan said, closing his eyes. You go ahead. I'll see you at the family meeting tonight, at 8 o'clock in the evening. The Shin family ancestral hall. More than 30 members of the Shin family, spanning several generations, took their seats in the ancestral hall according to seniority. Shin Yuan sat in the central armchair, gripping his boxwood cane. The candle flames in the hall flickered, casting light on the memorial tablets of the Shin ancestors hanging on the wall. Shin Jinghong sat in a seat by the aisle in the second row, his face ashen. I sat next to Shin Yuan, my place as the legitimate eldest granddaughter of the main branch. Today's clan meeting has only one matter on the agenda. Shin Yuan's voice echoed through the ancestral hall. The full story of Shin Yuan's death in Zhongqing 25 years ago, and Shin Jinghong's role in that event. A stir rippled through the ancestral hall. All eyes were on Shin Jinghong. He lowered his head, his shoulders trembling slightly. Jinghong, Shin Yuan said slowly, you speak for yourself. Shin Jinghong stood up, his lips quivering. I have nothing to say. My eldest brother's matter has nothing to do with me, really. I placed a yellow document on the table. This is the original receipt stub from that restaurant for the Shin family. Back then, it has your signature on it. That entertainment expense was reimbursed by you. The client you met that night was none other than Gu Jingting. Do I need to call in the witness? Shin Jinghong's body swayed, and he braced himself against the table. After a long silence, he ground out through clenched teeth. Your father insisted on going out on his own back then. He didn't want the vast Shin family enterprise. Instead, he had to run off to the south to start some lousy textile mill. Was it wrong of me to worry about him, I said with a smile, but my voice was as cold as wind blowing from an ice cellar. By handing his lifeline over to his competitor, I never thought he would jump. Shin Jinghong suddenly cried out hysterically. I admit I took a sum of money from Gu Xingting, I brokered that order, but I only thought Gu Xingting wanted to compete with your father and negotiate terms. I had no idea that handing over that business plan would become a death warrant. I never imagined it. The ancestral hall was deathly silent. I slowly stood up and walked over to Shin Jinghong. Do you know that because of your one I never expected it. My father jumped from the top of the 10th floor. When my mother had her heart attack, she was pregnant with me. My little brother couldn't be saved, and neither could my mother. Shin Jinghong's mouth fell open. What did you say? Your mother was pregnant that night, 5.5 months, while you were coming home drunk from a banquet and going to sleep. My mother was in the morgue. Second uncle, I've often thought this year, if that little brother had lived, he'd be 25 now. Shin Jinghong's legs gave way, and he fell back into the chair. All his confidence, all his defenses, all his lingering hope, in that instant, they were shattered into dust. A tear slipped from the corner of Shin Buiyuan's aged eyes. Leaning on his cane, he stood up and faced the gathered clan members. Only after a long pause did he speak. The clan council has ruled. Shin Jinghong is hereby expelled from the Shin family. All properties under his name shall be reclaimed as clan assets. From this day forward, he is forbidden from setting foot in the Shin household. If any other illegal acts are discovered, he will be handed over to judicial authorities. Shin Jinghong slumped in his chair and said nothing more. After the clan council disbanded, I walked alone through the corridors of the old residence. Moonlight streamed in, turning the stone-paved ground into a sheet of silver white. The phone vibrated. It was the hospital calling. Miss Shin, Mr. Gu Sihan requested an early discharge. After his request was denied, he forcibly removed his foreline and left the hospital. We cannot locate him now. It is very likely that he will come to you. Before I could fully process the news, my phone rang again. The caller ID showed Gu Sihan. I answered. The voice on the other end was silent, with only the howling wind and heavy breathing. Gu Sihan, Chinghe. His voice was so hoarse it was almost inaudible. My father, did he go to Chiha Cemetery? I paused for a moment. No. Are you looking for him? He's already fled. This afternoon, someone saw his car heading toward the airport. He's run off. Gu Sihan's every breath was laborious, as if his chest held a broken bellows. The Gu Corporation has been seized. Creditors are surrounding the old Gu residence, and everything movable has been looted. My grandfather, he's had a stroke. The moment he heard the news that Gu Xingting had fled, he collapsed on the spot. He's still in emergency care. I gripped my phone tightly. Where are you? I'm downstairs at your place. Which home? The old house in Kyoto, under the buttonwood tree at the alley entrance. I hurried through the corridor and ran outside. Beneath the old locust tree stood a man. Though stood was merely propped up against the wall, barely holding himself together. Gu Sihan's right arm was in a thick cast, his shoulders leaning slightly forward at an unnatural angle, clearly unable to straighten after the bone injury. The outline of bandages was faintly visible around his ribcage, where 2 ribs had been broken. His face was as pale as a sheet of paper, his lips cracked and dry. It's below zero in Kyoto today, I said, looking at him. You came out in your hospital gown. Sorry, he said. You came all the way from Jiangqing to Kyoto just to say that. Sorry, he said again, his lips trembling. My dad ran off. That debt of blood, I'll bear it for him, in whatever way I have to. I looked at him, at this man who once stood so high above everyone else, now like a sick cat that had fallen into the water, but not a single ripple stirred in my heart. Everything froze on the day he chose Lin Yue, or perhaps it froze even earlier. On that morning when he knew I wasn't feeling well yet still refused to look me in the eye. Go back, Gu Sihan. You don't owe me anything anymore. As for my father's revenge, the part your father should bear, you can't bear it for him, and between us, that account is already closed. Thank him for me for going to Chiha Cemetery that day. His eyes reddened. Chinghe, no, I truly loved you back then, I interrupted him, but that Chinghe is still there, in the candlelight of that restaurant. From now on, we go our separate ways. You take your path, and I'll take mine. Just go. He was silent for a long time, then slowly and with difficulty, he took something out of his pocket and placed it on the ground. This is what you accidentally left on the table at your charity gala 3 years ago. I've kept it all this time. It's a black hair clip, a very ordinary style, the one I thought I'd lost 3 years ago, so it was in his hands all along, so he knew this hair clip was mine, yet in the past 3 years, He had never mentioned it to me even once. I bent down, picked up the hair clip, and held it in my palm. Gu Suhan cast one last glance at me, then turned and walked toward the mouth of the alley, supporting himself against the wall step by step. Under the moonlight, his silhouette was as thin as a sheet of paper, and the white plaster cast on his right arm was glaringly bright in the night. Standing in the wind at the mouth of the alley, I watched him disappear under the streetlights, limping with every step. My phone lit up. 3 consecutive messages from Lin Yue's number. The first was a photo. Lin Yue, disheveled, sat in a cramped rental unit in an urban village, her face sallow and lips pale. The second was a text. Miss Shin, Lin Yue wants to see you. She says she knows where her mother hid that necklace. The condition is that you spare the child in her belly, and drop the criminal charges against her. The third was a voice message. I tapped it open. Lin Yue's hoarse sobs crackled through the speaker, fragmented with static. Shinchingha, the necklace. I'll go ask my mother for it. Spare my unborn child. And I'll do anything. Turn off the screen. The moonlight falls on that black hairpin. I stood there for a long time, then replied to my assistant. Arrange for someone to pick up Lin Yue from the urban village and take her to a safe place. Have her prepare her written confession. Tell her I will protect the child, but she must pay the legal price for falsifying the medical examination. After sending the message, I looked up at the plaque of the old Shin family residence behind me, in the ancestral hall. The candlelight is still burning, casting a flickering patch of light and shadow through the carved lattice window. A 25-year game of chess, now with only the final moves left. Dad, Mom, I whispered to the moonlight, I'm almost at the end. The wind blew through the ginkgo trees, their golden leaves rustling as if someone were answering. Chapter 9, Lin Yue's endgame. Early the next morning, Lin Yue was brought to a property owned by the Shin family, located diagonally across from the old Shin residence. When I pushed open the door and walked in, she was curled up in the corner of the sofa, wrapped in a black down jacket that clearly didn't fit her, her hair greasy and plastered to her scalp, her face completely drained of color. In just a few days, she seemed as if all her vitality had been sucked out of her. Sister, her lips quivered when she saw me. I sat down across from her. Where is the necklace? Promise me first. Her eyes reddened. Promise me you'll spare the child in my belly. No one was ever going to touch your child from the very beginning, I said, looking at her. I have no reason to take it out on an unborn life, but you're different, Lin Yue. Your criminal penalty will follow the law, no exceptions. Tears streamed down her face. I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I know I've done too many terrible things. I had my mother pay for that medical report. Getting close to Si Han back then was also something I deliberately made happen. I never wanted to kill you. I just wanted to become Mrs. Gu. I came out of the mountains with nothing but this face. All right, stop with the sob story. I interrupted her. Where's the necklace? She wiped away her tears and took a few heavy breaths. In the rental apartment my mom rented, there's an iron box under the 3rd floor tile to the left as you enter. Everything she stole from the Shin family back then, except for what she sold for money, is in there. I nodded to my assistant. He quickly walked out. The room fell silent. Lin Yue covered her face and cried for a while, then suddenly looked up. Is Si Han doing okay? Fractures, 2 broken ribs, and a persistent high fever caused by wound infection. Thanks to you jumping off the building. She swayed, her face pale almost to the point of translucence, so she hadn't known. She thought Gu Suhan had come to the rooftop that day because he had changed his mind and wanted to leave with her, unaware that he had fallen down the stairs trying to protect her. Let him forget you. He will forget you, I said. Lin Yue gave a bitter smile. She looked down at her slightly swollen belly and gently touched it. Do you know when I realized I had lost? It wasn't the day the Gu Corporation went bankrupt, nor the day my mother was arrested. It was that day downstairs at the hospital, when Si Han had the security guard stop me. He sent word that he wouldn't see me. In that moment, I knew that from start to finish. In his heart, I was just a chess piece. After you left, he needed someone to fill that spot, and I happened to be there. Even if the child really were his, he never intended to marry me. Everything he did was just an imitation of making it up to you. It didn't matter who he made it up to. As long as she was the woman in that position at that time, she was right. All of Gu Suhan's seemingly doting behavior toward Lin Yue over the past 3 years was nothing but a pitiful performance. For himself, when he was cold toward me, he needed someone to shoulder the burden of his guilt, and Lin Yue happened to take on that role. He didn't even need to love her, just needed to treat her well to show me. That was enough. That morning when leaving the property management office, the legal affairs team had already set off for the police station with Lin Yue's recorded confession. The assistant called to say that inside the iron box under the floor tile of Lin Meifeng's rented room, aside from the remaining jade necklace, there was also a well-preserved handwritten note, the transaction record written by Gu Xingting to Lin Meifeng back then. It clearly stated the price for transferring the business plan, the handover time, and the name of the intermediary. In the intermediary's signature line, the name Xinxinghong was conspicuously written. On the afternoon of the day I obtained the handwritten note from Gu Xingting as evidence, I had someone deliver it to the police. Although Gu Xingting had already fled, with this proof, even if he escaped to the ends of the earth, the warrant would still catch up with him. In the evening, Old Chen brought a piece of news from a contact at the Kyoto Daily. Gu Xingting had been stopped at the security checkpoint of the airport's international departure hall. He was carrying 5 passports, 3 ID cards under different names, and nearly 2 million in cash. When he was stopped, he even tried to bribe the security personnel with money but was subdued on the spot. Miss, Old Chen said softly, according to procedure, the news will be released tomorrow morning. The old master says he deserves it. The next morning, the news broadcast the footage. Gu Xingting, with his hands cuffed, was escorted by 2 police officers through the airport terminal, while surrounding travelers raised their phones to record. In the footage, he looked around anxiously, his gaze confused and fearful, repeating the same phrase over and over, I didn't mean it, I didn't mean it. I turned off the tablet and looked up out of the window, in the direction of Chiha Cemetery, across most of Kyoto. Dad, you waited 25 years, and finally your time has come. That afternoon at the hospital, when I saw Gu Sihan, he was leaning against the hospital bed watching the same news segment. He had become gaunt, almost beyond recognition. The cast on his right arm had been replaced with a new one, and a faint yellowish medicinal fluid seeped through the gauze. After watching the news, he closed his eyes and placed his phone on the nightstand. You're here. He opened his eyes, his voice calm. My father has been arrested. My grandfather passed away yesterday. I was stunned. Your grandfather, late last night, he had a stroke and they tried to resuscitate him for over 3 days, but couldn't save him. Before he left behind a message, saying that failing to stop his son 25 years ago was the greatest sin of his life. Gu Sihan's voice was very soft, as if afraid of disturbing something. No one can save him this time. With multiple crimes combined, the sentence will be at least 20 years. He paused again, forcing a smile. I never used to believe in karma or a father's debts being paid by the son, but now it seems my turn has come to pay up. I stood by his bed for a while, took out the jade earring from my bag, and placed it on the nightstand. Recovered from Lin Meifeng's rental apartment. The other one still hasn't been found. It was probably sold years ago. Keep it, consider it a memento of my 3 years married into the Gu family. Back then, your mother really did put some thought into it. Gu Sihan looked down at the earring, his lips trembling violently. After a long time, he raised his head to look at me, tears finally falling. It's not that I don't love you, I just don't know how to love someone. Lin Yue made me feel like I was the aloof young master of the Gu family, but you're not like that. You've always been more clear-headed than me, more able to bear things. When I'm with you, I never feel like I'm in control. I'm afraid of you, so I keep my distance. I was silent for a long time. That just means you didn't dare face me. You know I would never see you as some kind of god, I said. Then I turned and walked out of the hospital room. When I reached the door, he asked from behind, Qinghe, could you come see me one more time? I stopped just one step short and did not answer. 3 days later, Gu Xingting's case was formally filed. At the same time, Lin Yue was sentenced to 1 year and 6 months in prison, suspended for 2 years, for falsifying medical documents. Considering her current physical condition, the court allowed her to serve her sentence outside of prison. I did not attend the court hearing. My assistant told me that Lin Yue kept crying in the defendant's seat, and when the verdict was finally announced, she held her stomach and sobbed so much she could not utter a single complete sentence. Lin Meifeng's case, however, was far more serious. She was not only involved in the theft case from 25 years ago but was also suspected of commercial espionage. The legal classification of that business proposal document had seen a breakthrough after her arrest. The police also followed the clues and uncovered multiple channels through which she had sold off the stolen jewelry. Thus, all the threads came together. Xinxinghong was expelled from the Shin family, and all his assets were confiscated as family property. Gu Xingting was held in a detention center awaiting trial. Lin Meifeng, convicted of multiple crimes, faced a prison sentence of over 10 years. Lin Yue, carrying her unborn child, struggled to survive alone at the bottom of society, and Gu Sihan spent the entire autumn in a hospital bed. The world he had once taken pride in had vanished completely. In the wake of this storm, the Shin family of Kyoto began redefining their place in the public eye. Shin Boyuan stated at the family assembly that humility does not mean fear, and that the Shins must walk a straighter and steadier path in the future. On Friday evening, I went alone to Chiha Cemetery. The grave of my parents was covered with white chrysanthemums, some already slightly withered. I replaced them with fresh bouquets, knelt down, and traced the cold stone with my fingertips. "Dad, Mom, it's all over," I said softly. "Gu Jingting is in detention. Lin Meifeng has been taken in as well, and Shin Xinghong has been driven out of the Shin family. I've sought justice for the wrongs you suffered back then. I didn't keep that earring. I gave it to Gu Sihan. If you need anything over there, just tell me." The evening wind blew from the direction of the cemetery, carrying the crisp, clear chill unique to autumn. My parents still stood quietly among the green pines on the hillside, while the myriad lights of the distant capital city lit up one after another, warm and peaceful. I straightened up and took one last look at the photos on the tombstones. My father's gentle smile, my mother's curving eyebrows and eyes. In another world, they must have already reunited. The phone buzzed once. The message from Gu Sihan was just one line: "I'm being discharged next week. I've applied to go to the Northwest as a teaching assistant and caregiver. I might not return for a long time. Take care." I replied with a single word: "Okay." Scrolling further up, there was a longer message he'd sent a day earlier. "Chingha, I've decided not to dig up the old accounts of the Gu family anymore. Let the court handle the bankruptcy liquidation. Whatever debt remains, I'll work slowly for the rest of my life to pay off. My mother has moved to a small town to live with her sister. I don't have a home anymore anyway. The Northwest is harsh, but at least this hardship is my own choice. Thank you. I've never properly thanked you for marrying me those 3 years." The screen glowed a little too brightly in the cool breeze. I read the message twice, then deleted it. The wind blew, and the sound of pine leaves came from far away. Drawing closer, I turned and walked down the stone steps. Behind me, the setting sun cast a tender golden light on my parents' gravestones. Chapter 10, A New Beginning. 3 weeks later, at Kyoto International Airport Terminal 3, sunlight poured through the massive glass curtain walls, flooding the entire departure hall with brightness and clarity. I sat by the floor-to-ceiling window in the VIP lounge, with an Americano coffee and a boarding pass for a flight to New York on the table beside me. Outside the window, a Boeing 787 was taxiing, its silver-white wings reflecting the afternoon sun and casting a long shadow across the runway. My assistant stood beside me and handed over a document. "Miss, this is the complete plan for disposing of the remaining assets of the Gu Corporation. The court has approved it. The Shin Corporation has taken in 70% of Gu Corporation's employees, and the remaining 30% have been absorbed by several other companies. As for Gu Sihan's personal debts, the proposal to repay them in installments through his salary has also been submitted. The court has accepted it." I flipped through the document and signed my name on the last page. "Where is Lin Yue? Her due date is next spring. A social worker visited her last week, and her condition is relatively stable. She found a clerical job at a housekeeping company on the outskirts of town. The pay isn't high, but it's enough to get by." The assistant paused. She asked the social worker to pass along a message. "Thank you for saving her child." I nodded. "One more thing," the assistant said, pulling an envelope from the bottom of the folder. "This was delivered on Mr. Gu Sihan's behalf. He left for the Northwest today." Inside the envelope was just a photograph and a note. The photo showed a young Sihan sitting in a wheelchair, with his father, Gu Jingting, still able to stand upright and push him around the garden. On the back of the photo was a line of handwriting. "That year, I had no idea how much debt I owed this world. The day after tomorrow, I'll go repay it. Gu Sihan." I turned the photo over. On the front, Gu Sihan was grinning without a care in the world, showing a gap where a front tooth was missing. Back then, he probably had no idea that more than 20 years later, he would be alone, carrying that debt, heading into an unfamiliar desert. There were only 8 words on the note: "I owe you nothing, live well." Sunlight slowly moved across the marble floor. The announcement came on, and the flight to New York began boarding. In front of the boarding gate, my phone rang. The caller ID on the screen made my pupils dilate slightly. "Gu Sihan." I hesitated for 2 seconds, then picked up. "Hey, it's me." His voice was a bit clearer than it had been in the hospital. "I'm at the train station. The train to the Northwest leaves in an hour. Yeah, Chinghe. He paused for a long time. I thought about it the whole way, but in the end, it still comes down to these 3 words: I'm sorry. I didn't say anything, actually. The first time I saw you at the charity gala, I could tell you weren't from an ordinary family. The way you stood among the crowd, with that calm poise and quiet confidence, it wasn't something you could fake. Back then, I felt you were too far out of my reach. He gave a soft laugh. Later I realized it wasn't about reach at all. It was that I didn't dare face you. You're too good, and being near you only made me feel like nothing, so you went for Lin Yue instead. I went for someone who made me feel less like a failure, he said. In the end, I lost everything. I suppose that's my retribution. The announcement urged passengers to board again. Gu Sihan, I need to board now. Have a safe journey. He paused. Chinghe, if there is a next life, don't. I interrupted him. Save words like that for the person you meet in that next life. There was a long silence on the other end of the line, and finally he laughed, a hint of resignation in his voice. All right, ending the call, I switched my phone to airplane mode, picked up my handbag, and walked toward the boarding gate. The flight attendant greeted me at the door with a smile. Ms. Shin, welcome aboard. The moment I stepped into the jet bridge, I felt a slight tremor beneath my feet. The sound of the aircraft's engines starting up, this vibration, transmitted from the ground, felt like a ritual, marking the end of one journey and the beginning of another. I found a window seat, sat down, fastened my seatbelt, and gazed out at the vast, flat runway. Sunlight spilled over the wings, reflecting a dazzling glare. Before turning off my phone, I took one last glance. My assistant had just sent an electronic document. After Shin Jinghong was expelled from the Shin family, all the equity in his affiliated companies had been transferred back to the Shin Corporation. The Shin Corporation then allocated 10% of it to my father, Shin Huayuan's estate fund, establishing the Chinghe Academic Perseverance Scholarship in his name in both Kyoto and River City. Under use of funds, it read, to support students from disadvantaged backgrounds who demonstrate both academic excellence and strong moral character in completing their higher education. I picked up my phone and glanced once more at the digital application form. On the last page, neatly written in the initiator signature line, were 3 characters, Shin Chinghe. It was only at this moment that I truly felt the view at the end of this journey was indeed different. The plane began to accelerate down the runway, the roar of the engines grew louder, and the immense thrust pressed my entire body against the seat back. I closed my eyes and felt that force, like the way fate had hurled me into a dark marriage 3 years ago, unable to break free or turn back. But at the moment the plane lifted off the ground, all the weight suddenly disappeared. I opened my eyes and saw the land outside the window receding rapidly. Kyoto's skyscrapers, streets, and parks turned into irregular blocks, growing smaller and smaller, until most of them were obscured by clouds. Sitting at 30,000 feet, I thought of many things. I thought of the white chrysanthemums growing more and more withered before my parents' grave, of the jade necklace retrieved from beneath the floor tiles of the Lin family's rented apartment, of Shin Jinghong's uneasy, startled look at the clan meeting, of Lin Yue curled up on the sofa crying, asking Sihan if he was okay, of Gu Sihan saying in the hospital bed, "It's not that I don't love you," and of the black hairpin he left at the entrance of the old lane. And I thought of last night. Last night, I went to the Crane Perch Cemetery for the last time, at least. The last time before I leave. The moonlight was beautiful, illuminating the entire cemetery. I crouched before my parents' tombstone and placed the recovered jade necklace in front of it. Dad, Mom, I've retrieved what was lost. The people involved have been caught. Second uncle has been expelled from the Shin family. Gu Xingting is in prison, and Lin Meifeng has been locked up as well. Everything you lost back then, I've gotten it back for you, piece by piece. The night was so quiet that I could hear my own breathing, but I decided not to hate anymore. It's too tiring. I just can't keep hating. From now on, I want to live well. Don't worry, I'll be fine. Outside the window, clouds churned and surged, the golden sunlight dyeing the sea of clouds into an endless orange ocean. I leaned back in my seat and closed my eyes. A scene from many years ago surfaced in my mind. At that time, my family still lived in the old house in Kyoto. My mother planted a small osmanthus tree in the yard. She said that when the tree grew up and bloomed in autumn, the whole yard would be filled with fragrance. My father smiled and said it would take many years. My mother replied, "Then we'll wait. After all, as long as our family is together, we have all the time in the world." But that osmanthus tree never saw its flowering season, and neither did my mother. 25 years later, I stood in the yard of the old house and saw that the osmanthus tree had grown tall and lush, its branches covered in golden blossoms during the autumn season. Yet the person standing beneath the tree was no longer one of the three from back then. The plane jolted slightly. As it hit some turbulence, I opened my eyes and found my face a little wet. Reaching up, I touched tears outside the window. The sea of clouds continues to surge, and the sunlight remains just as dazzling. I wiped the corners of my eyes, took out the black hairpin from my bag, and placed it on the small tray table by the window. This hairpin had suddenly disappeared from my life for 3 years, only to reappear under the winter moonlight of Kyoto. It had accompanied me through a failed marriage and a long, drawn-out revenge. Now, on this flight to New York, it had become nothing more than an ordinary hair clip. The woman who once wore it is gone. What remained was a woman who had walked through gunfire and storms, finally able to sit here quietly and gaze at the sea of clouds. The plane continued flying west. New York was still ahead, and behind her, that city called Kyoto, all its grievances, tears, debts, and regrets, had already sunk beneath the clouds, becoming too distant to ever see. Clearly again, I took out my notebook and opened it to the first page, then began writing the first memo of the day. Details for donating the Chingha Scholarship. First installment of funds will be in place next week. Contact Jiangqing City Education Bureau. When I wrote the two characters Chingha, I paused for a moment. Chingha. When my father gave me this name, he said, "May you be pure and upright, like tender rice seedlings." For 25 years, this name has borne too much weight that never belonged to it. Hatred, scheming, forbearance, revenge. From today on, it should return to its original meaning. The clouds gradually disperse, and the shadow of the plane schemes across the sea. On the other side of the ocean, the east coast of the United States comes into view, tinged with a new kind of blue. I look out the window and smile. As for living, I plan to learn it all over again. Just before the phone went completely dark, the last text message popped up. It was from Gu Sahan's number, with just 4 words, "Have a safe journey." Before the screen went black, I typed the word thanks and hit send. The screen went black. The plane continued to fly smoothly. I leaned my head against the window, watching New York draw closer, and tucked the black hairpin into the very bottom of my bag. The end.